Chapter 3875. The Mysterious Willow Tree. The overwhelming amount of venom gushed over but was completely blocked. Instead, Wuxiang slashed out with his saber, and the saber landed heavily on the toad's head, forcibly splitting the poisonous toad apart. Gua gua! The huge toad fell down like a small mountain. The venom on its body also lost its luster and gradually dimmed. Chen Ting and the others were delighted when they saw this. Never had they imagined that Wu Jiang actually possessed such a treasure. However, at this moment, a figure flashed past and reached Wu Jiang's side, knocking him aside. Then, a water-splitting thorn stabbed down, aiming for the poisonous toad that was about to die. Crackle. After the water-splitting thorns landed, a series of firecracker-like noises rang out. The poisonous toad immediately exploded. It was deader than dead, and the person who attacked also used the water-splitting thorn to constantly search for something in the rotten flesh. In the end, he cursed, "Damn it, this kind of god's descendant actually has nothing, not even a treasure." After he finished speaking, he spat out a mouthful of saliva. And he was Xianxia. This guy actually took advantage of the fact that the venomous toad was half dead to suddenly steal it, as if he wanted to obtain some kind of treasure. Of course, generally speaking, the descendants of gods would definitely leave behind precious things after death, such as monster cores or something. However, this toad did not have any, causing Xianxia's efforts to be in vain. "Wu Jiang, you're still not calm enough. A centipede dies, but never falls down. A poisonous creature like this can only be killed. If it's half dead, it can counterattack at any time. Sai, if I didn't make a move, you would have been in deep trouble." Next, Xianxia reprimanded Wu Jiang as if he was the one who had killed the poisonous creature. In reality, he was just kill-stealing. "Xianxia, you have gone too far." However, Chen Ting and the others were not fools. They immediately reprimanded him. You don't know how to appreciate my kindness." Xianxia snorted coldly, but he didn't waste any more time. He said, "Let's go." Chen Ting and the others became even more furious when they saw him act like a senior. However, Wu Jiang waved his hand to indicate that he didn't care. Seeing this, Xianxia narrowed his eyes and stared at the bracelet on Wu Jiang's wrist. He knew that the bracelet was extremely powerful. If it belonged to him, Then, he put away his smile and strode forward, as if he was the leader, leading the way. This guy, Chen Wu and the others were still furious. Just as they were about to move forward, Lin Ling suddenly stretched out his hand and stopped them. "Lin Ling, what is the meaning of this?" Chen Ting asked curiously as she turned to look at Lin Ling seeing this. Lin Ling explained with a smile, "I just feel that there's still some danger ahead, so I want to be careful." "It's fine. That archaic toad is already dead. What other dangers can there be? You have to know that the poisonous creature from before was already considered a demon king. With how powerful it is, there are definitely no other archaic demonic beasts in the nearby territories." Hearing this, Chen Wu comforted him. He saw that Lin Ling's cultivation level was the lowest, so he thought that Lin Ling was just afraid. As for Xianxia, who was walking in front, he laughed disdainfully and said, "What a coward. I think that the few of you should leave the ancient dragon wasteland. This is a place for experts, so it's not suitable for children like you. Also, let me tell you, martial artists should move forward bravely. If you take a step back, then what's the point of practicing martial arts? You're just a coward. Look at me. I've never taken a step back in my life." Xianxia's words were filled with sarcasm. Chen Ting and the others immediately turned pale. When the poisonous toad appeared, Xianxia did not take any action. He was just hiding. Now he was speaking so righteously. How shameless. "Is that so? Then I hope that you'll never be a coward," Xianxia said. However, at this moment, Lin Ling smiled and said calmly. He had been paying attention to the front, and now he realized that something strange had finally happened. Rumble. As soon as Lin Ling finished speaking, the ground exploded. Then, countless tentacles spread out, and their speed reached the speed of 1,000 worlds. The poison left behind by the poisonous toad on the ground was sucked clean by the tentacles. Moreover, a large number of tentacles stretched out from the ground and grabbed the poisonous toad's corpse before devouring it in a frenzy. Just as they finished devouring, on the other side, the ground suddenly exploded again, as if it had awakened a monster. Then the salt pan rumbled, and a pure white toad rushed out. It was the same poisonous creature from before, and it was even bigger than the previous one. This gave everyone a shock. There were two of those terrifying creatures from before. However, before they could react, the toad let out a strange cry. Its cry was filled with panic and fear. Then, it ran away at the speed of 1,000 worlds. Obviously, it had encountered a terrifying creature, and the terrifying creature had already attacked it. Just as the poisonous creature ran halfway, endless vines suddenly appeared and wrapped around the toad. Then the toad was sucked clean. This caused a wave of terror to spread silently. Although everyone knew that the salt pan was not easy to walk through, they did not expect to encounter so many terrifying creatures in just half a day. Oh my God! As for Xianxia, he let out a squeal like a pig being slaughtered. He rolled and crawled as he ran back in a sorry state. He was not as arrogant as he had said before. Is this an expert from the E-Garden? Shenwu did not care about the danger ahead and laughed mockingly. He also said that his martial path was only to move forward bravely. But now, he has turned around and is running away. Chen Ting could not help but laugh. Even a quiet Wu Jiang showed a look of disdain. Perhaps he is the coward. As for Xianxia, who was rushing over, his face was filled with fear. In a fluster, he lost his balance and fell to the ground. Then, he glided over like a dead dog, causing the crowd to burst into laughter. However, with his pathetic speed, it was hard to tell where he would end up. Therefore, Wu Jiang also took action. He stretched out his foot and blocked Xianxia's ferocious momentum. However, this foot blocked Xianxia's cheek. From the side, it looked as if Wu Jiang had kicked Xianxia's face. Bang! Xianxia's voice was carefree, and he managed to stop Xianxia's momentum. Ha! Seeing Xianxia's funny look, Chen Ting and the others could not help but laugh. As for Xianxia, he quickly got up. When he saw everyone laughing, he was obviously angry, but he could not vent his anger. Remove the footprint on your face. You look a little pitiful. At this time, Tian Ao suddenly reminded Xianxia. His words stunned Xianxia. Then his forehead was full of green veins. Footprint on my face. Chapter 3876. Wild Willow. Just as Xianxia was about to explode, Lin Ling spoke. Coward, if you don't want to die, then scream. I have a feeling that the monster in front of us will kill you first. Xianxia's face turned pale instantly, and he dared not speak again. With his strength, he could naturally sense that the terrifying existence in front of them was extremely powerful. The others gradually calmed down and looked ahead. For a moment, they did not dare to act rashly. Lin Ling, that is Wild Willow, a deity's remnant of the same level as Realm Scorpion. Beside him, the silent giant ghost suddenly spoke. Wild Willow. Lin Ling was shocked and asked quietly, what level of strength is it? Middle stage martial god realm, more powerful than the platinum evil spirit. The giant ghost spoke again. His words made Lin Ling's face turn solemn as he looked ahead. In front of them was a hazy, poisonous fog. A huge figure was like a ghost, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Countless vines were scattered on the ground like thick strands of hair. Moreover, as the poisonous fog dispersed, an ancient tree finally appeared. Upon closer inspection, this tree was about 5 people encircling it. The tree was covered in rough bark, and under the tree, many weeping willows hung down, looking like black whips. What is that? Chen Ting and the rest stared at the ancient tree and licked their lips. Wild Willow. In fact, it is the real Monster King nearby. All the toads are just its prey. Lin Ling continued to stare ahead and said slowly, moreover, this tree has yet to grow. It is only comparable to a middle-stage martial god. It has yet to grow, and it is already a middle-stage martial god. Hearing this, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Moreover, the scariest thing in the ancient dragon wilderness is not the remnant monsters, but the plants. Lin Ling said again. He had learned this from the giant ghost. What do we do now? How about we run away? Tian Ao immediately asked. However, Chun Ting shook her head and said, We can't run away. I can sense that there are willows under the ground within 1,000 miles. That's right, we are surrounded. Lin Ling naturally sensed the change as well. The countenances of everyone turned ghastly pale when they heard this. But in next to no time, a spiked club that emanated dazzling golden light appeared in Chen Wu's hand, and he said solemnly, Since we can't flee, then let's fight. After he finished speaking, he took the lead and rushed over. In midair, golden light soared into the sky, as if it had expelled all the haze. 90% of the ancestral power. Moreover, behind him, a golden war chariot appeared, majestic and awe-inspiring. War drums sounded, shaking heaven and earth. This was clearly his innate talent. Brother, let me help you. When Chun Ting saw this, she clapped her hand, and then an ancient white bow appeared. The cry of a phoenix resounded, and it was like a phoenix was dancing in the 9 heavens. She drew her bow and fired, also erupting with 90% of her ancestral power, the arrow shooting towards the desolate willow with 1,500 world speed. This was the phoenix bow. She clearly possessed the bloodline of the divine phoenix, and it was extremely pure. When the others saw this, they also unleashed their unique skills. However, the desolate willow in front of them remained motionless, and when the blossoming attacks arrived, the willow branches finally moved. The terrifying thing was that the willow branches moved extremely quickly, and they actually formed a barrier. Moreover, although the willow branches didn't seem thick, they were even harder than divine artifacts. Clang! Clang! Everyone's attacks were blocked. Only Chun Ting's arrow passed through the willow branches and landed on the desolate willow. In the end, half of the arrow shot into the willow, and then it dimmed down. At this moment, everyone's faces were ashen. If they used their full strength, they would probably be able to defeat an early-stage martial god, but it was completely ineffective against the desolate willow. Moreover, this was when the desolate willow didn't attack. If it attacked, would they still have a chance to survive? It's over, it's over. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have come here. Who led the way? Salt pans, it's really a dead end. Damn it, I shouldn't have joined these small alliances. I should have followed the Great Alliance. When he saw that his attacks were ineffective, Xianxia couldn't help but shout in panic. He paced back and forth, and his eyes were wet. He was an expert of the E generation, and his future was bright. He didn't want to die here. However, no one laughed at him, because Chun Ting and the others had collapsed to the ground, and their faces were full of dispiritedness. Even Lin Ling's face was solemn. Because of the giant ghost's explanation, he finally understood how terrifying the desolate willow was. It was said that if this willow appeared in the 10,000 realms, any realm would be cut apart by it. It was terrifying. However, Lin Ling secretly used his chaos eye and chaos ears, and gradually heard some strange sounds. He even saw a golden light flickering on the body of the desolate willow, but Lin Ling couldn't see what it was. Immediately, he asked the giant ghost, and then his eyes became brighter and brighter. What should we do? What should we do? At this moment, Chun Ting and the others were still shaking their heads, and their hearts were filled with regret. Tian Ao gritted his teeth and said to Chun Ting, Maybe we'll all die later, but Miss Chun Ting, when I first saw you, I was already attracted to you. I know this is rude, but I also know that if I don't say it now, I won't have the chance to say it. He wasn't joking, because even Lin Ling noticed that Tian Ao looked at Chun Ting differently. He had this feeling from the first time he saw her. Chun Ting blushed a little. However, at this moment, Lin Ling also spoke. You don't have to die yet. His words made everyone look up, and Xianxia said in disbelief, You're not lying to us, right? Coward, get lost. You're not qualified to be lied to by me. Lin Ling didn't treat Xianxia well, and he said calmly, The desolate willow seems to be refining something, so it didn't attack us. This is the best time for us to escape. Previously, it appeared because the poisonous toads disturbed it. Really? Everyone's mouths were wide open. It seems like you don't have much of a choice, so it doesn't matter. Lin Ling said with a smile. Then let's escape. Chen Ting and the others stood up, and their spirits were lifted. This was because none of them wanted to die here. Then, they immediately decided to escape into the distance, and even leave the salt pan. They didn't even want to stay in the Shop of God. Although the Shop of God was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, one must know one's limits. Just as they turned around, Chen Ting realized that Lin Ling hadn't left, but was looking ahead coldly, which shocked her. All along, she hadn't taken Lin Ling seriously. After all, Lin Ling was only at the middle stage martial ancestor realm. However, she now realized that when the desolate willow appeared, the most calm person was the young man with the lowest cultivation level. Chapter 3877. Array of Golden Light. Hee. I reckon that desolate willow is a rank 4 martial god. Speaking of which, I have never killed a martial god before. Lin Ling said calmly as he drew his sword from his back. Boom! Everyone was shocked. Tian Ao said in disbelief, Lin Ling, you can't be. Yes, that's right. It's rare to see it refining something. If I don't kill it, I'll miss the chance. Yes. Lin Ling turned to look at Tian Ao and nodded. He was curious as to what the ray of golden light that desolate willow was refining was. He had a feeling that the ray of golden light was related to God's store. However, after receiving Lin Ling's affirmation, Tian Ao and the rest almost fainted. They had finally seen desolate willow refining something and could not escape in time. However, Lin Ling wanted to kill desolate willow? Tian Ao, isn't he your junior? You should persuade him. Chen Wu was so shocked that he started to stutter. Hearing this, Tian Ao smiled wryly. I would like to persuade him too. Unfortunately, he is the leader of our alliance. Chen Ting and the rest's eyes twitched when they heard this. A middle-stage martial ancestor challenging desolate willow, a middle-stage martial god. Was he tired of living? Or did he think that life was too boring and wanted to find some excitement? Idiot! The corners of Xianxia's mouth curled up in a mocking smile. Ignoring these idiots, he immediately fled into the distance. Lin Ling, the gap between you and desolate willow is too big. Unless desolate willow is sleeping, it's impossible for you. Chen Ting did not want Lin Ling to die, so she tried to persuade him again. However, the moment she finished speaking, everyone was stunned. It seemed like the desolate willow was sleeping right now. At this moment, Lin Ling gently smiled and slowly said, Don't worry. Are you willing to give up on God's store? You should know that if you turn back, you won't be able to reach God's store. Think about it. When you were still at grade 6 and grade 7 with the ultimate desolate body, your junior had already reached grade 8. When you meet him again, how would you feel? Moreover, the path of martial arts has never been smooth sailing. Lin Ling's voice was like a needle. It didn't seem loud, but it pierced deeply into everyone's hearts. To be able to become the masters of the third hall, they must have encountered a life and death battle in their lifetime. However, when the martial god Desolate Willow appeared, they felt that it was impossible to fight, so they had the thought of running away. Lin Ling, I'll help you. As if he had thought it through, the glaive appeared in Wu Zhang's hand once more. As for Chen Wu and Chen Ting, they looked at each other before a wolf-tooth club and phoenix bow appeared in their hands. Then, they looked at Lin Ling and nodded heavily. Lin Ling, we'll help you too. Heavenly Pride and the others did not plan to escape. To be honest, they were reluctant to give up on God's shop. Moreover, if they escaped this time, it would leave an insurmountable shadow in their hearts. If they were to encounter any danger in the future, their first thought would be to escape. If this cycle continued, it would be difficult for them to reach a higher realm in their lives. Sensing Heavenly Pride and the others' fighting spirit, Lin Ling could not help but smile and nod his head in praise. To be able to quietly awaken from fear and become fearless was not something that just anyone could do. After all, fear was one of the greatest enemies of humans. Those who could overcome fear were dragons among men. As for Xianxia, who had escaped, he was incomparable. He was as dirty as a toilet stone. Now, the Desolate Willow is refining that thing. Hence, we have very little time left. We have to kill it before it is completely refined. Following that, Lin Ling stared ahead and said, "All right." Chun Ting and the others looked at each other and immediately nodded their heads. In my opinion, the Desolate Willow's fatal point should be the tree trunk. However, there are many willow branches around it, and they're very strong. Ordinary people would not be able to get close to it. Hence, if we want to kill the Desolate Willow, the best way is to attack the tree trunk. The willow branches will ignore us. That's good. After all, there are too many willow branches. If we were to clear them one by one, not only would it be troublesome, it would also be dangerous. However, Lin Ling, when I shot the tree trunk earlier, the effect was not great. I estimate that in order to destroy the tree trunk, we would need to use 100% of our ancestors' power. That's a little difficult. Of course, although we do not have 100% of our ancestors' power, if we join forces, we should be able to achieve the same result. Everyone split up and rushed towards the Desolate Willow from all directions like dragonflies. At the same time, they shouted to each other. At this moment, the huge Desolate Willow in front of them was still motionless. It seemed that it was indeed in the process of refining. Only when the enemy reached a certain distance would it attack. Everyone had prepared all their unique skills. The moment they got close to the Desolate Willow, the willow branches waved and formed an ancient divine realm. Attack! Everyone was excited and filled with anticipation. They were excited because the Desolate Willow was indeed refining the treasure. If they did not approach it, the Desolate Willow would not attack. However, they were filled with anticipation because they had a chance to kill the Desolate Willow. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A spatial barrier appeared. It was formed by countless desolate willow branches, which intertwined with one another and sliced through everything. Everyone's attacks were immediately blocked. Chun Wu was in the most miserable state as the desolate willow branches almost wrapped around his mace. Meanwhile, Tianao and the others attacked with all their might. However, after knocking away the desolate willow branches in front of them, more desolate willow branches appeared from all directions. Their speed had reached 1,500 boundary speed. Seal. The desolate willow branches had completely sealed off their surroundings, preventing them from approaching it. Furthermore, the desolate willow branches were not attacking them. If they had attacked, they would have been dead by now. What are these desolate willow branches? Why are they so tough? Zhong Jin yelled in disbelief. Beside him, Lin Ling waved his sword casually while his eyes flickered continuously. Although he was only attacking casually, Chun Ting and the others were used to it. In their opinion, the strength of a mid-stage martial progenitor realm cultivator was more than enough. Allow me. At that instant, the cry of a phoenix could be heard as Chun Ting floated in the air. Her robe danced in the wind, giving her a sacred appearance instead of a cute appearance. A pair of phoenix wings spread out from her back. The arrow penetrated through the vines and landed on the desolate willow's trunk. This time, the effect was quite obvious as the desolate willow began to sway slightly. That being said, that was all. The reason being that the arrow did not have any effect after that. Chun Ting was startled before a dispirited look appeared on her face. Sister, that old desolate willow is a martial god realm demonic tree. Of course the arrow would not have any effect on it. That being said, Chenwu comforted her too. Meanwhile, he glanced at the crowd with a worried look. I feel like something is wrong with the desolate willow. It feels like it's watching us. Could it be that it has woken up? Luo Wucheng suddenly said in a nervous tone. Chapter 3878. Lin Ling made his move. I think it's not too late to leave now. As the weakest among them, Zhuang Yanming was obviously thinking of retreating. There's still one more chance. I'll stop the willow branch. You guys attack with all your might. However, right at this moment, Wujiang suddenly roared loudly, and it shocked everyone. Among the crowd, Wujiang's strength could only be considered average. Who would have thought that he actually had the strength to block the willow branch? Wujiang, be careful. However, at this point, everyone immediately placed their hopes on Wujiang. Wujiang activated his armor once again. White light soared into the sky, and the huge words Black Tortoise Sect appeared. Then, this guy was like a huge divine turtle, and he actually pressed forward. Around his body, the phantom of a giant turtle appeared. Its four limbs slowly moved forward, approaching the wild willow step by step. Boom! Boom! With every step he took, the salt pan shook, as if the heavens and earth were falling apart. Even Lin Ling took a second look at it and smiled. The power of 10,000 worlds. He sensed that Wujiang's set of armor increased his physical strength greatly. The power of 10,000 worlds. Of course, this was only secondary. The truly terrifying part was still that defensive power. With the armor, Wujiang, who is only a peak martial progenitor, was able to block the attack of a martial god. Clang! Clang! The willow branches wrapped around the divine turtle's body, but they were unable to stop it from moving forward. Furthermore, the hard shell of the divine turtle also blocked the willow branches from cutting it. This turtle is too powerful. Tianao and the rest were tongue-tied. You guys, stop admiring me. I won't be able to hold on for long. Wujiang noticed that Tianao and the rest were actually admiring him, and he was instantly furious. Were those fellows deliberately trying to exhaust him to death? Everyone came to their senses and immediately unleashed all of their power. Rumble! The void split open in an instant, as if it could topple mountains and overturn seas. Everyone's attacks passed through the black tortoise and headed straight for the willow tree. And with Wujiang's godly armor, all the willow branches were attracted, causing all the attacks to explode on the ancient tree. Rumble! Their combined attacks could probably kill a martial god. When it landed on the huge willow tree, the effect was extremely obvious. The hard bark was blown apart, and then a large amount of blood began to flow out. The entire tree also shook violently. This time's attack clearly brought damage to the wild willow. As for Lin Ling, who had been silent all this time, his eyes finally lit up. This was because he saw that Chun Ting's phoenix arrow didn't bring about any fatal injuries. Instead, Chun Wu's spike club was thrown over, and it actually made the desolate willow tremble violently a few times. Most importantly, the place where the mace struck was where the golden light was emitting from time to time. Is he dead? After a short moment, someone finally spoke. It was Chun Wu. However, everyone was not too sure. On the contrary, Wujiang shouted, "Hurry up and run. That demon tree has woken up." What? Everyone's expression changed drastically. Their attacks were ineffective. Following that, they looked over and immediately saw the wild willow baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Clearly, it had completely awakened and was in a state of rage. Run now. We've already done our best, but some things are already predestined. Chun Ting and Chun Wu uttered a roar as they began to feel the urge to retreat. However, at that instant, Lin Ling finally made his move. With a kick, he dashed forward with his blue robe fluttering in the wind and a huge sword in his hand. This caused Chun Ting and the others to be dumbfounded. Chun Wu said in disbelief, "Isn't that guy just doing nothing? Why is he attacking when we're planning to run away?" He had witnessed Lin Ling's previous attack. To be honest, the attack was extremely weak. It was as if he was just trying to deal with the situation. That being said, he was aware that Lin Ling's cultivation was not too high, thus it was normal for him to be able to unleash such a powerful attack. However, Lin Ling was no longer trying to deal with the situation, but risking his life instead. A mid-martial progenitor risking his life? Chun Wu almost covered his eyes with his hands, as he could not bear to watch this any longer. Indeed, although Lin Ling was just trying to deal with the situation, he was also observing the wild willow, trying to find a way to deal the fatal blow. Furthermore, although the wild willow had woken up, it had only just woken up. This meant that Lin Ling still had a chance, albeit a short one. Look, heavens, his speed is so fast. Suddenly, Wu Jiang exclaimed. In his eyes, Lin Ling's speed had surpassed 1,000 boundaries. Furthermore, he managed to avoid the willow branches. Chinting also said while covering her mouth. The willow branches intertwined with one another like an ancient heaven-earth formation. No one below the half-martial god realm could get close to it. Those who entered the formation would die. However, in the eyes of the crowd, Lin Ling's figure was like a deity. Not only did he avoid the willow branches, he was also getting closer to the willow. Could it be that he's a boundary master? Chen Wu said nervously. Even if he's a boundary master, it's impossible for him to know the heaven-earth formation of the wild willow. Unless. Wu Jiang said in a serious tone. He could not utter the word, unless for a long time. Say it. Chen Wu could not hold it in any longer and almost kicked Wu Jiang. Wu Jiang did not try to hide the truth. His expression became even more serious as he said, unless he's the one who saw through the heaven-earth formation. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone's heart skipped a beat. Through their previous confrontation, he saw through the willow branches' trajectories. Could that guy be a monster? While they were exclaiming, Lin Ling had already appeared in front of the wild willow. He placed one hand behind his back and looked at the willow calmly. The wild willow had just awakened, but it was also looking at Lin Ling at that moment. The man and the tree seemed to have frozen time in the world. Oh no, his cultivation level is too low. Even if he has reached the heaven-earth formation, he can't inflict any fatal injuries. The silent scene made Chen Ting suddenly think of something, and she shouted anxiously. That's not necessarily true. Chen Ting, Lin Ling is our leader. He's definitely the most powerful person in our small alliance. However, Tian Ao also spoke. His words made Chen Ting and the others frown instantly. They doubted Tian Ao's words. Almost at the same time, Lin Ling drew his sword. The huge sword looked thick, but it was as light as lightning. A ray of sword radiance appeared and shot toward the wild willow. The sword radiance was as if the era of the gods had arrived. At that instant, the ground trembled as a murderous aura and demonic aura soared into the sky. In the distance, Chun Ting and the others covered their mouths. In their eyes, the young man was like a sword demon. The progenitor's force of the sword was increasing rapidly. 80%, 90%, 100%, 100% progenitor's force. Tian Ao, the junior brother, is too monstrous. It's my first time seeing a middle-stage martial progenitor with 100% progenitor's force. Chenwu could no longer hold it in and exclaimed. In fact, Tian Ao and the others were also shocked by Lin Ling's strength. They remembered that during the martial arts exchange at the Yi Villa, Lin Ling did not have 100% progenitor's force. However, 100% progenitor's force was easier said than done. Chapter 3879. Unbridled. Unless it was those old monsters who had reached a bottleneck in their cultivation and had reached the limit of their talent. Chi. At this moment, Lin Ling's sword landed on the willow tree trunk. Upon closer inspection, that was the spot where the golden light had previously bloomed. After the sword stabbed into the willow tree, the entire willow tree shook violently. Countless willow branches slashed indiscriminately, tearing space apart. On the other hand, Lin Ling frowned and immediately floated back. Moreover, he also realized that the tyrannical song sword was only halfway in, and it would be difficult for it to go any further. As expected of a martial god realm demonic tree, if he hadn't just woken up, Lin Ling wouldn't have been able to stab that sword. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Blood gushed out from the willow tree's body, but gradually a pair of eyes appeared. As soon as this eye appeared, the faces of Chun Ting and the others in the distance instantly turned pale. What a terrifying eye! Heavens! Even a sword strike with 100% of ancestral force couldn't kill him. He's too invincible. Look, the sword is only halfway in. Lin Ling, retreat quickly. Lin Ling is in danger. Next, Tianao and the rest shouted in shock. However, Lin Ling did not leave. Instead, he walked towards the willow again. Countless willow branches danced as the blue-robed figure walked forward, ignoring the cutting willow branches around him. I'm very curious. What is that golden light? Why did your willpower become even stronger after swallowing it? A calm voice drifted out from Lin Ling's mouth. When they heard this, the eyes of Chen Ting and the others became hazy. At this moment, they felt as if Lin Ling was from a completely different world than them. Everything about Lin Ling was very mysterious, making them want to tear open that layer of screen and see everything to the end. However, at this moment, countless willow branches shot towards Lin Ling like swords. The desolate willow finally made its move. The power of these willow branches was probably enough to kill a martial god. But at this moment, Lin Ling also drew his sword. Behind him, 18 true inheritance nether swords floated out. Then, they passed through countless willow branches and shot forward. They were neat and tidy, pleasing to the eye. From afar, it looked like an immortal sword piercing through the world. The most terrifying thing was that these swords didn't shoot in all directions. They only had a single target, and that was the tyrannical song sword. Clang! After the first sword landed on the hilt of the tyrannical song sword, it caused the tyrannical song sword to penetrate even deeper. The wild willow let out a terrifying cry for the first time. But the second, the third, the fourth, finally, the tyrant song sword was pushed into the wild willow's body. The wild willow's body began to swell, and in the next moment, it exploded. Those willow branches that were shooting towards Lin Ling all fell to the ground. The sky was filled with willow branches, and one had to admit that it was extremely beautiful. Chen Ting and the others looked at the scene in front of them, and the expressions on their faces did not calm down for a long time. This is a miracle. This was especially true for Chen Ting. She recalled the time when she had pulled Lin Ling into the alliance. At that time, Lin Ling had smiled and said to her, Godslayer Alliance's Lin Ling. At that time, she didn't take this name to heart. But now, she knew how terrifying this Godslayer Alliance's Lin Ling was. His strength was definitely ranked in the top 300 on the divine list. Don't be in a daze. These willow branches are extremely rare treasures. If they are used to forge weapons, they will definitely be at the level of acquired divine artifacts. Come collect them. While everyone was still in shock, Lin Ling's voice drifted over. Then, Chun Ting and the others rushed over and saw Lin Ling standing there quietly. His blue robe fluttered lightly, and a strange golden object appeared in his hand. Upon closer inspection, that object looked like a ginseng. Moreover, it had 4 limbs and looked like a child. There were also many golden roots on its head. Chun Ting was instantly curious. I don't know what it is either. It was left behind from the wild willow. It seemed to have been refining this thing before. Moreover, I checked it and found that this thing doesn't have any spiritual energy. Moreover, it looked more like a fleece flower. Lin Ling waved the object in his hand and smiled. Golden fleece flower? Everyone gathered around with curious looks on their faces. Hee, I didn't expect you guys from a small academy to be so capable. This wild willow was actually killed by you guys. Just as everyone was staring at the treasure in Lin Ling's hand, a disdainful voice suddenly drifted over from afar. This made Chun Ting and the others turn around. They saw Xian Yi, who had fled like a rabbit, walking back. He had his hands behind his back and a smug look on his face. Xian Yi, you still haven't heard to come back? Do you have any shame? We, the Impact Alliance, announced that you are eliminated. Seeing Xian Yi, Chun Wu was furious. This guy was good at stealing kills, but he was completely useless in other aspects. Hee, with your trash alliance, do you really think that you can invite me? I just lost contact with the Impact Alliance. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come even if you invited me. However, my luck is not bad. I finally found the Impact Alliance just now. Xian Yi slowly walked over. His pair of mung bean eyes seemed to be wary of Chen Ting, especially when his gaze landed on the towering peaks. He couldn't help but lick his lips. This made Chun Ting so angry that she clenched her teeth. However, just as she was about to speak, Xianxia once again said indifferently, "Although I'm leaving the alliance, I'm still considered a member of your alliance. According to the rules, I also have a share of the treasures you obtained." Bullshit. Do you still have any shame? Hearing this, everyone was burning with anger. I forgot to say, when I said that I have a share, it means that all the treasures in your hands belong to me. Even that stupid kid from the Wind Snow Academy, your golden fleece flower, is also mine. However, Xianxia wasn't angry. Instead, he said leisurely, "You're dreaming, not to mention treasures. We won't even give a single strand of hair to a rat like you." Chun Wu was so angry that he started laughing, and he'd never seen such a shameless person. Ha 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 ha. He suddenly laughed out loud. With his hands behind his back, as if he was the master of everything, he said, "Not only do I want the golden fleece flower, I also want your sister. Hee, I've been interested in her for a long time, especially those two lumps. TSK. I'll definitely have fun with them." His gaze was even more unscrupulous as he stared at Chun Ting. The Chun siblings were so angry that they immediately gripped the weapons in their hands tightly. However, Lin Ling frowned slightly. Based on his understanding of this scum, this person was very timid. So, where did he get his courage from? Suddenly, Lin Ling's eyes lit up. This was because his chaotic ears heard a familiar sound. This was the sound that he heard when he came to the ancient dragon wasteland. That's right, it was that poison lake. He remembered that when they passed by the poison lake, a cloud of pollen had spread out and paralyzed everyone's bodies. If it wasn't for Lin Ling's quick reaction, everyone would have been in trouble. And the source of the pollen was a poisonous flower at the bottom of the ancient lake. Now, the sound was exactly the same as the poisonous flower. Chapter 3880. Poison. The evil ghost jellyfish has swallowed all the pollen that entered my body. Damn, Lin Ling shouted in his heart. Fortunately, he had discovered in time. Otherwise, if he had been paralyzed as well, the consequences would have been unimaginable. The pollen was obviously brought by Xianxia. He did not know how Xianxia was able to use the pollen to paralyze everyone. However, it was clear that Xianxia had come prepared. At this moment, Xianxia chuckled. Instead of leaving, he strode towards Chun Ting. Chun Ting and the others were filled with murderous intent. They had not attacked Xianxia previously because they had given him a chance. After all, they were once in the same alliance. However, who would have thought that Xianxia had gone too far? "You should stop before you go too far." Tian Ao immediately stepped forward. Behind him, Wu Jiang did the same. Just as they were about to activate their boundary essence, they suddenly felt that they had lost control of their bodies. What's going on? Both of them were surprised at the same time. Chun Ting and the others' faces changed. When they activated their boundary essence, they immediately felt that something was wrong with their bodies. They also felt that the more they activated their boundary essence, the stronger the feeling of losing control of their bodies. "You used poison?" Chun Wu suddenly thought of something and looked at Xianxia furiously. Ha, that's right. I used poison. What can you do about it?" Xianxia enjoyed everyone's surprised expressions. He stared at Wu Jiang and said, "I like your armor very much. It will belong to me later." After he finished speaking, he punched Xianxia's stomach. Xianxia spat out a mouthful of blood and fell down like a shrimp. "As for you, trash from Snow Wind Academy." After that punch, Xianxia punched Tian Ao and the others. They fell down one by one, unable to move. They could only stare at Xianxia with hatred. This guy was despicable and shameless. Their faces were filled with anger. They did not expect that they would be killed by Xianxia instead of dying in the wild willow's mouth. However, Xianxia didn't kill them immediately because he was already looking at Chun Ting. Of course, when he walked over, he knocked Chun Wu down and said, "You guys are lucky because you won't die for the time being. The reason why I'm doing this is because I want you guys to watch me toy with Chun Ting." "Xianxia, you pervert. You're dead. You're dead. You're dead." Chun Ting, run. Chun Wu and the others who were lying on the ground immediately roared. "Ha ha, scream. You'll be able to feast your eyes later." However, The more they cursed, the happier Xianxia was. Moreover, he began to walk towards Chunting. Chunting was so angry that her face had turned red and she was trembling. Especially the two lumps on her chest. They were bouncing violently. A despicable person like you should kneel down obediently and destroy your own words. Then you might still have a chance to live. But at this moment, a cold voice broke the silence and quietly floated out. This also caused Xianxia to stop in his tracks. His face suddenly darkened. He slowly turned his head and looked at the person who spoke. Wind Snow Academy's Lin Ling, you were able to teach my junior a lesson in the E-Garden. But now, you're just like a dog. Let me tell you, if it weren't for Chun Ting and the others, I would have taught you a lesson already. Although Lin Ling had killed the wild willow, in his opinion, that did not represent any strength. It could only be said that Lin Ling's courage was commendable and he was not afraid of death. Taking a step back, even if Lin Ling's strength was not bad, now that he was poisoned, he was just like a dog. Xianxia temporarily gave up on Chun Ting and began to walk towards Lin Ling. When he arrived in front of Lin Ling, he seemed to be looking down at Lin Ling. The light in his eyes was obviously different. On the ground, Tian and the others shouted because they also noticed that Xianxia's attitude towards Lin Ling was different. He seemed to want to kill Lin Ling first. But the truth was that Xianxia wanted to kill Lin Ling first because Lin Ling's attitude was too calm. From the beginning to the end, there was not the slightest bit of panic. And when he looked at Xianxia's eyes, Xianxia felt that there was a trace of pity in them. It seems that you've finally chosen to die. Lin Ling finally spoke. Although his words were calm, there was a strong murderous intent mixed in. Die. Xianxia laughed contemptuously, as if he had heard the best joke in his life. This brat was too ignorant of the situation. Didn't he see that Tian and the others were rolling on the ground like dogs? After laughing, Xianxia's eyes became ferocious, revealing a trace of hatred. Wind Snow Academy's Lin Ling, do you know what you're doing? Do you know where you are right now? This is the ancient dragon wasteland. There are countless people stronger than you. In our E-Garden, there are countless experts of the E-generation. My seniors, Yu Quan and the others are in this area, and you've already been crippled by me. You still want to kill me? Are you crazy? Immediately show me a panicked expression. Immediately beg for mercy. It seemed that Lin Ling was too calm, causing Xianxia to go a little crazy. A water-splitting thorn appeared in his hand, and he immediately slashed towards Lin Ling's legs. He wanted to see Lin Ling begging for mercy, and he wanted to see Lin Ling cry even more. This slash caused Chun Ting and the others' eyes to widen. Chun Ting almost shouted that she could fulfill Xianxia's wish, but Xianxia had to let Lin Ling go. But would Lin Ling's legs be cut off by a mere Xianxia? What a joke! Lin Ling's eyes turned cold. He stretched out his left hand and slapped the water-splitting thorn away, then punched out with his right fist. Bang! This punch broke Xianxia's right leg. Bang! Another punch broke Xianxia's left leg. Chun Ting and the others stared at Lin Ling in disbelief, unable to believe the scene in front of them. Looking at Xianxia again, he was lying on the ground, his hands clutching his legs as he screamed in pain. His face was also filled with disbelief and fear. How was this possible? You've clearly been poisoned by the heavenly flax flower. Could it be that you have the Dupu leaves on you? Xianxia roared in shock. The poison you're talking about should be this, right? Lin Ling looked at him with a faint smile. Suddenly, a large number of jellyfish rushed out from behind him, and a few of them even spat out a large amount of pollen. This was the pollen of the poisonous flower. After spitting it out, all the jellyfish looked at Xianxia with bared fangs and brandished claws. In Xianxia's eyes, the Lin Ling in front of him was not a human, but a demon that had escaped from the underworld. You can't kill me. Xianxia's hands pressed against the ground as he staggered backwards. I'm from E-Garden, and my senior is Yu Quan. If you dare to kill me, everyone in Snow Wind Academy's Shun San Hall will die. Let me tell you, Yu Quan is an expert, more powerful than any of you. He even knows the Gold God Tribe's priest and the Water God Tribe's princess. You bunch of lowly commoners are no match for him. Chapter 3881. Soulless Swamp. Right? Lin Ling frowned. This name seemed somewhat familiar. Suddenly, he remembered. It was in the ancient lake mine. At that time, Jean E and Princess Shui Wan were accompanied by several experts from the E-Garden. One of them seemed to be called Yu Quan. That guy was actually a senior from Xian Class 1. Are you scared? Come help me up. Seeing Lin Ling remain silent, Mystic One thought that Lin Ling was afraid. Thus, he roared hysterically. However, Lin Ling's sword cut off Xian Yi's arms. Right? In front of me, he is nothing but trash. If you have the chance, you can ask him if he dares to speak to me. Lin Ling. As for Princess Shui Wan and Priest Jin Shun, I'm sorry, but I killed them. Lin Ling laughed coldly. His words caused Mystic One to open her mouth wide in shock. Just as she was about to say something, Lin Ling's sword had already been raised high in the air. A cold light shone from the sword. You dare? Don't kill me. I won't let you off even if I become a ghost. With a swing of the sword, Mystic One was also smashed into a meat patty. Lin Ling found a few pieces of strange tree bark on her body. They seemed to be dupu leaves. However, although they looked like leaves, they were actually more like tree bark. After tearing them apart, Lin Ling could see that they were connected by spider silk. After that, he distributed the tree barks to Chun Ting and the others, and once they obtained the tree barks, the numbness they felt gradually vanished. After they stood up, they looked at Lin Ling gratefully, because if it wasn't for Lin Ling, they would have definitely died here. It was even to the extent that Chun Ting could imagine that if it wasn't for Lin Ling, not only would she have died here, she would have been tainted by that bastard. Thank you, thank you. The two siblings said gratefully. Big brother Lin Ling, thank you. Of course, no one was more grateful than Tianao. He rushed over and hugged Lin Ling. He almost kissed Lin Ling. This caused a look of disgust to appear on Lin Ling's face. At the same time, he also realized that this fellow should be thanking him on behalf of Chun Ting. Lin Ling couldn't help but secretly kick Tianao and said, "She has just gone through a life and death tribulation. Her heart is at its weakest right now, so why don't you seize this opportunity?" Tianao immediately reacted. He looked at Lin Ling gratefully and ran to Chun Ting's side. However, Chun Ting didn't pay any attention to him. Instead, she walked towards Lin Ling and said worriedly, "Lin Ling, you killed Xian Yi. He's from E-Garden, and I've heard of the Yu Quan he mentioned. He's stronger than us." Now, Lin Ling knew what Chun Ting was worried about. He interrupted her and shrugged. "Don't worry. It's fine if Yu Quan doesn't come looking for you, but if he does, he'll definitely regret it." Then, he looked at the golden fleece flower in his hand and looked into the distance. Finally, he led the group forward again. After this incident, the group unknowingly regarded Lin Ling as their leader. The Chun siblings even discussed and canceled the attack alliance. They joined the Godslayer alliance directly. Although they didn't like to be controlled by others, after being with Lin Ling and the rest, they realized that Lin Ling and the rest weren't arrogant and were easy to talk to. In addition, Lin Ling had saved them, so they joined the Godslayer alliance. Lin Ling naturally welcomed them. Currently, the Godslayer alliance didn't have many people and needed experts to oversee it. A half-step martial god was one of the top experts in the entire Godslayer alliance. The salt pan was huge and full of dangers. Other than the poisonous trees, there were also poisonous duckweeds and other poisonous plants. These poisonous plants were no small matter. Fortunately, Lin Ling had encountered them several times, so he was able to avoid these poisonous plants in advance. Moreover, Lin Ling noticed that these poisonous plants were more or less glowing with a golden light. They seemed to be the golden fleece flower. This made Lin Ling even more curious. In the vast salt pan, other than Lin Ling's small alliance, there were other alliances moving forward. Some of them knew the taboo of the salt pan, so they managed to cross it. Some of them were like Lin Ling and the rest, advancing step by step. Of course, there were many deaths in the process. Moving forward like this, all the small alliances were getting closer and closer to the God Shop. In fact, to get close to the God Shop was a trial of blood and killing. Only those with great courage perseverance, and fighting spirit could enter the god shop. It's the soulless swamp again. Let's take a break. After we recover, we'll rush through this place. In front of a magnificent swamp, Lin Ling stared ahead. There, bubbles constantly emerged from the swamp and then burst, emitting a mysterious miasma. It was colorful and extremely beautiful. Looking into the distance, the land seemed to be endless. And this was the soulless swamp. To be honest, Lin Ling and the rest had encountered such a swamp several times before. It was just that it was not as big as the one in front of them. However, they all knew that the terrifying thing about this swamp was that it was soulless. This meant that any martial artist who entered this swamp would use up their realm essence. In the end, their combat strength would be reduced by as much as 90%. Lin Ling and the rest had passed through the soulless swamp several times before. Nothing major happened. However, when they passed through, they clearly saw many experts dying in the swamp. There were even people who were half swallowed by the swamp and were asking for help from Lin Ling and the rest. However, Lin Ling refused because he discovered that the lower half of the person's body had been swallowed. He was just struggling on the verge of death. If they got close, something unexpected might happen, and that was just a small swamp. The big swamp in front of them was likely to be filled with danger. This god shop is really difficult to walk through. Tianao and the rest sat at the edge of the swamp and could not help but sigh. They did not know if they could continue on like this. Once we pass through this swamp, we will arrive at the god shop. Lin Ling looked at the group and then said with a smile, boosting their fighting spirit, "Is this the last part of the journey? All right, since we have come this far, we will continue even if we die." Wu Jiang immediately stood up, looking a little high-spirited. Then he looked at Luo Wucheng and said with a smile, "Everyone get up. This is the last part of the journey. Once we pass through it, we will succeed. Let's go. We have made it this far. Damn it. I don't believe that this swamp can stop us." Tianao and the rest also stood up. Lin Ling suddenly smiled and immediately led the way. After entering the soulless swamp, a mysterious force permeated the air. Everyone noticed that their realm essence was being drained rapidly. This was the effect of the miasma. "Speed up. Let's leave this place before our realm essence runs out." Following behind Lin Ling, Shenwu immediately shouted. Everyone cannot help but speed up. They stepped lightly on the ground and then leaped across the swamp. Lin Ling took the lead, but he immediately noticed that the miasma in front of him had quietly changed color. It had turned orange. This made him realize that the miasma was even more powerful and could accelerate the depletion of a martial artist's realm essence. "Go around here, go that way." Lin Ling made a decision and ran in another direction. Chapter 3882. Canon Deity Alliance. However, after walking in another direction, Lin Ling and the rest saw a group of people attacking a huge vine. The huge vine was rolling around in the swamp like a snake. From time to time, it would release duckweed that was as thick as a finger. What was terrifying was that the duckweed was impervious to water and fire. It was floating in all directions. Looking at the ground of the swamp, there were few people sitting there. They were obviously injured. From this, it could be seen that this group of people was attacking the huge vine. Under their attacks, the vine seemed to be heavily injured. This also meant that this group of people was not weak. Moreover, there were many of them. There were many half-step martial god realm experts in this group. One of them was the strongest and had an 8th grade talent. His wrists were as huge as an ape's arms. With a punch, he could release a godly cannon-like attack. Under his attacks, the giant vine began to crack apart. This person's combat power was terrifying. It was almost comparable to an ordinary martial god realm expert. 90% of Ancestor's power. Moreover, his talent is not weak. Lin Ling was shocked. This was the strongest 8th grade ultimate desolate body he had ever seen. It was even stronger than Wanyan Bupo. He was definitely one of the top 300 on the divine list stairway. "Who are you?" The other party was obviously from the Alliance. After seeing Lin Ling and the rest, he immediately shouted angrily. Chun Wu and his sister frowned. Their alliance barely had 10 people, while the other party had almost 100 people. If there was a conflict, they would definitely be at a disadvantage. Moreover, when they looked around, they did not see anyone familiar from the academy. This meant that the other party would not give them any face. Kill them. That was indeed the case. Suddenly, someone from the alliance yelled out. In a place like the ancient dragon desolate land, when an alliance met another alliance, it would often be a double cross, forcing others to join their alliance. If the other party refused, they would be directly destroyed. Looking at Lin Ling's alliance, there were only a few people and their cultivation did not seem high. Therefore, they did not bother to absorb them and directly killed them. Most importantly, the desolate vine they killed was about to die, and they didn't want to cause more trouble. Everyone, I'm Lin Ling from the Godslayer Alliance. We're just passing by and don't intend to cause any trouble. I hope you can let us through. At this moment, Lin Ling also spoke up. It was because the surrounding miasma was still drifting about, everyone's realm essence still flowing out. If they could avoid a battle, that was naturally better. Looking at the other party, they seemed to have treasures that could block the miasma, so they were in a better state. If the two alliances were to fight, Lin Ling could guarantee that they would be fine, but he could not guarantee that Tian Ao and the others would be fine. Godslayer Alliance? Never heard of it. Destroy it. A thin and weak young man spoke again. Sir, must you fight to the death? Hearing this, Lin Ling's voice turned cold. Although he did not want to fight, if the other party was overbearing, he would not allow himself to be trampled on. Hearing Lin Ling's words, the group of people from the alliance couldn't help but laugh out loud. Firstly, Lin Ling's alliance was small in number and weak in strength. Secondly, Lin Ling's alliance's realm essence was flowing out, but they had treasures that could block the miasma. The difference between the two sides was obvious. That guy actually said that they would fight to the death. That was a joke. Kill. Then, the group of people did not waste any more time and immediately prepared to attack. It was obvious that they were not newbies like the Godslayer Alliance. They seemed to have stayed in the ancient dragon wasteland for a long time. Newbies, although God's store is good, the great world over there is not something you can get close to. Someone sneered. However, just as they were about to attack, a loud voice suddenly rang out. Fei Ying, you kill the desolate vine. I'll take a look at them. The leader had already looked at Lin Ling and the others. Then he said indifferently, Godslayer Alliance, I'm the leader, Godslayer Li Fei Shan. Are you guys interested in joining our alliance? What? Once this was said, everyone was in disbelief. This was because a small alliance like Lin Ling's was nothing in their eyes, unless the other party was a fierce talent. However, when they took a closer look, other than Chun Ting and her sister who looked familiar, the others were unfamiliar. Obviously, they were not in the strongest circle of the Godslayer Alliance, and were not worth their attention. Boss, this. Someone looked at the leader and asked curiously. However, the leader waved his hand and smiled at Lin Ling. What do you think? This not only surprised the Godslayer Alliance, but also Chun Ting and the others. Glancing at everyone, Lin Ling smiled and said, Join you and work under you? That's right. In the ancient dragon wasteland, it's normal for alliances to devour each other. If you don't join us, you will be forced to join others. However, the Godslayer Alliance is not a small alliance. You won't lose out if you join us. The man called Godslayer continued to smile. Hearing this, Lin Ling cupped his hands and bowed. Then, he said calmly, I'm sorry, I have no intention of joining other alliances. This guy. Lin Ling's words shocked the people of the Godslayer Alliance. This was because they had no intention of letting Lin Ling and the others join them. Now that their leader had given them a chance, this trashy alliance had rejected it. It was a small alliance that had overestimated itself. Rejecting is tantamount to provoking us. The outcome may be the destruction of the entire alliance. However, Godslayer was not angry and spoke slowly. Our alliance may be small, but if they want to destroy us, we'll have to see if they have any teeth. Lin Ling immediately retorted. How dare you? Damn it, we gave you a chance. It's fine if you reject it, but you're still so arrogant. Boss, destroy them. Lin Ling's attitude infuriated the people of the Godslayer Alliance. However, Lin Ling did not care about these small fries. Instead, he looked at Godslayer calmly. Godslayer also looked at Lin Ling calmly. Their gazes were like invisible flames that bloomed continuously in the air. The God Shop has opened, and there are already 100 alliances there. Weak alliances will be destroyed. This is the style of the ancient dragon wasteland. Godslayer spoke again. His words left his subordinates speechless. Why was their leader so easy to talk to? Why was he tolerating them again and again? They remembered that there was once a small alliance that wanted to join, but their leader was unhappy and destroyed it. The reason was simple. The other party was an alliance formed by a group of old monsters. If the old monsters joined, it would be like the prestige of the Godslayer Alliance. Now, not only did Godslayer not attack, he was even explaining, did the dozen people on the other side have the right to do so? Moreover, you've all been poisoned and your boundary essence is being depleted. Soon, your combat power will be reduced to 0. So, if you miss this opportunity, there will be no turning back. Chapter 3883. Divine Canon. Sorry, I refuse. Unfortunately, Lin Ling didn't even consider it and directly shook his head. Very good. The Canon God narrowed his eyes and didn't say anything else. His arms shook and rumbled. It was as if his arms had turned into 2 godly cannons. Looking at his legs, they had actually turned into divine cannons as well. With a bang, waves of air rolled out, and with the help of his tremendous speed, he charged forward. Speed, 1500 world speed. Rumble. Cannons flew across the sky, shocking everyone. Everyone disperse. Lin Ling squinted his eyes and immediately shouted, while the surrounding Tian Ao and the others quickly dispersed. Currently, their boundary essence was getting lesser and lesser, so they naturally knew that they were no match for him. As for Lin Ling, they knew that when they were walking through the swamp, Lin Ling had used some unknown method to consume his boundary essence the slowest. Therefore, it was all up to Lin Ling now. In reality, they did not know that the reason why Lin Ling lost his realm essence so slowly was because he had 6 stanchions. The Tyrant Song sword appeared in his hand, and he held it horizontally in front of him. Then Lin Ling's eyes flashed, and the space-time divine steel came crashing down from the sky. Rumble. However, the cannonball was truly terrifying. It shot straight towards the space-time divine steel, and even the divine steel in the sky was sent flying. At almost the same time, Lin Ling's Eye of Chaos also appeared, affecting his opponent's heart of martial arts. However, it was still useless. The other party was like a cannonball, charging forward bravely, as if his heart of martial arts was flawless. Seeing this, Lin Ling also increased his speed and retreated madly. But this time, the cannonball suddenly increased its speed again and reached 1600 world speed. This was clearly beyond Lin Ling's current speed, unless he had fused his talent. Expert, this was a real expert. Go! Lin Ling was not willing to take a direct hit and not retaliate. So when the cannonball came crashing down, countless true inheritance nether swords flew out, intersecting with each other, forming a sword net, cutting through the cannonball. This guy actually has so much boundary essence. The people from the Canon God Alliance sucked in a breath of cold air. They thought that Lin Ling was the weakest, but from the looks of it, Lin Ling probably also had a treasure to prevent the boundary essence from leaking out. Ding ding dang dang. However, the sword net formed by the true inheritance dark sword was still unable to stop the giant cannon. Boom! Finally, the huge cannon arrived in front of Lin Ling. Upon closer inspection, it was actually a huge fist. God Valor Cannon. With a roar, the cannon exploded. The thick tyrannical song sword was actually bent by that punch. Following that, a terrifying explosion occurred. Rumble. The sky seemed to be blooming with the most gorgeous fireworks. The entire swamp rumbled incessantly. Then, a figure flew out from the huge fireworks and glided along the swamp before finally shooting into the swamp. Lin Ling. Seeing this, Tianao and the others shouted. Their hearts were heavy. That person's strength was so terrifying. He was not a human, but a cannon. In the sky, explosions continued. However, a burly figure stood there and looked at his hands calmly. The gloves that I bought from the Shop of Gods are indeed amazing. He was the cannon god. He was ranked 347th on the divine list, an expert who was even more terrifying than Wanyan Bupo. Seeing that their leader had killed his opponent with a single punch, the people from the Cannon God Alliance were elated. Boss, you're awesome. Tis TSK, killing with one shot is so satisfying. Every time I see Boss's shot, my blood will boil. However, that guy is quite powerful. He has many tricks up his sleeves. In our alliance, he could be considered a mid-level expert. After all, he is only a mid-level martial ancestor. On the other hand, Chun Ting and the others' faces turned ugly. They had never thought that the depths of the ancient dragon wasteland would be like this. The 100 Alliance competition. The Alliance would fight each other, and the weak would be eliminated. Only a truly powerful alliance could stand out and become a dragon. Looking at the Godslayer Alliance, they had few people and were weak. They were simply cannon fodder. Rumble. However, at that moment, a loud explosion came from the swamp. The explosion caused everyone to stop laughing, and the cannon god's eyes narrowed. The sludge exploded, and a gorgeous figure slowly floated up. This person was dressed in black and had swampy skin. However, his limbs were like dragon claws, and behind him were a large number of gorgeous tentacles that were swaying slightly. Around his body was a snake-like vine. This was the Desolate Vine. It was obvious that this person had been entangled by the Desolate Vine when he had fallen into the swamp. Bang! However, under everyone's gaze, the Desolate Vine that was comparable to a martial god was torn into two by the person. Everyone's jaws dropped, and they were extremely shocked. It's not over yet. On the contrary, that person strode forward in the sky, step by step, and an invisible pressure spread out in all directions. It's you. The cannon god stared at the person's face and immediately recognized him. It was the young man from before. His heart thumped again. Who is this person? How is he still alive after being hit by my shot? One should know that he was ranked 340th on the Stairway of the Divine Board. Even if he did not know the experts on the Stairway of the Divine Board, he had heard of them. However, this was the first time he had seen such an expert. What an interesting talent. With the help of the Divine Cannon, as a token of my gratitude, I should show you my strength. At this moment, Lin Ling finally stopped in his tracks and looked at him calmly. He knew how strong the cannon god was. In fact, if he had not gone to the Kirishim, he would have had to use all his trump cards to defeat the cannon god. However, he had absolute confidence now, and he did not even need to use his trump cards. Bang! The tentacles behind Lin Ling suddenly danced and spun wildly. They formed a powerful force and brought Lin Ling forward. His speed was 1,800 boundary speed. The cannon god's eyes widened, and he shook his head. Impossible. You should have used up all your boundary essence. Where did you get this strength from? As soon as he finished speaking, a figure appeared in front of him and threw a punch at him. Divine Valor Cannon. Seeing this, the cannon god also roared furiously. His boundary essence surged, causing his arm to become even thicker. His cannon-like arm also shot out. Rumble. The two fists collided and flames shot up into the sky. Everyone's eardrums started to hurt. The people from the Cannon God Alliance opened their mouths wide. They did not expect the collision to be so intense. Boss, you can definitely win. Someone suddenly roared out in anger. Boom! However, in the next moment, a figure retreated from the explosion. He took 10 steps back, and the sky cracked. The swamp under his feet continued to explode, revealing many footprints. This person was the Cannon God. Oh my God! The people from the Cannon God Alliance shouted. To be able to force their boss to retreat, and from a small alliance, was this a dream? 10,000 boundary essence. As for the Cannon God, he looked at his fist, and his expression changed drastically. Wrong. It's 18,000 boundary essence. Chapter 3884. 100 Leagues Alliance. Shun-Ing Cannon. Double Cannon Explosion. Seeing this, Cannon God punched out with his fists like two cannons. Light gathered around his fists, getting brighter and brighter. Rumble. The fists of the two sides approached from afar and collided. This caused a huge shockwave to appear in midair, reaching tens of thousands of miles away. Endless heat waves and astral winds swept in all directions. Everyone was lying on the ground, their bodies trembling. Then they all looked up. Smoke billowed in the sky. After it dispersed, two figures appeared. They were like overlords. Their fists collided, and the space around them cracked. These were dazzling overlords. Of course, Cannon God was an overlord, so this was normal. What shocked everyone was the mysterious young man. All right, let's not fight anymore. At this time, Cannon God suddenly retreated. He looked at Lin Ling with fear. From the beginning, he felt that Lin Ling was not simple. That was why he tried to recruit him. However, Lin Ling was also arrogant. He would rather die than submit. Then, the two of them collided violently. Only after he collided with Lin Ling did he realize how terrifying Lin Ling was. 18,000 worlds of power, and his talent was unknown. However, he was definitely of a higher level than him. Most importantly, Lin Ling was in a state of dissipation. What if he was at his peak? Cannon God estimated that he would only be able to compete with Lin Ling if he unleashed his full power. So, can we go now? On the other side, Lin Ling smiled faintly. The darkness on his body had quietly retreated. The short confrontation earlier allowed him to have a deeper understanding of his own strength. The realm-swallowing beast talent had increased, and the plump fish soup in the forest had greatly improved Lin Ling's physical strength. He was no longer the same as when he had just entered the Kaiyuan River. Yes, Cannon God looked at Lin Ling seriously and then nodded. Of course, he also looked at his own alliance. However, at this moment, no one said anything. No one objected. This was because although the Godslayer Alliance had few people, their leader was a true dragon overlord. This should be your first time here, right? This way. Cannon God suddenly pointed in a direction and said, "Originally, I thought that you weren't qualified to go to God's shop. However, after the previous battle, I know that you are qualified to enter the top 100 alliance. However, your alliance is still lacking in numbers because you are the strongest." Thank you. Lin Ling smiled and looked at Tian Ao and the others. He waved his hand and said, "Let's go." All right. Tian Ao and the others were scared out of their wits. They nodded their heads numbly and followed Lin Ling. What a terrifying junior. The ancient dragon wasteland opens once a month for half a year. I hope there won't be any more experts coming. Cannon God said solemnly as he looked at Lin Ling's back. That's right. But this month's new alliances will definitely have a lot of underdogs eating each other. And there's no need to absorb the weak alliances. The only outcome is death. I'm afraid that there are very few alliances that can do such a thing. The Godslayer Alliance has finally crossed the salt pans. The people from the Cannon God Alliance said, one after another. They knew that after the opening of the ancient dragon wasteland every month, there would be a large number of alliances entering. However, at least half of them would be able to reach God's shop. Once they reached God's shop, they would be eaten by other alliances. There were very few alliances that could stay in God's shop. However, if they could stay, they would be part of the top 100 alliance. This was the elimination rule of God's shop. Lin Ling, how are you so strong? No wonder you could kill those monsters when you were walking through the swamp. You didn't even need to use your boundary essence. Haha, I didn't expect you to be the strongest among us. Chen Ting and the others were very happy to follow Lin Ling. Lin Ling smiled and nodded. Then, he looked into the distance. He could vaguely see a huge tower. After entering the ancient dragon wasteland, they had seen either poisonous lakes or swamps. This was the first time they saw a human building. Obviously, that was God's shop. We're here. Lin Ling finally smiled. Chen Ting and the others also looked into the distance. Instantly, they all laughed excitedly. God's shop was said to be a shop left behind by the gods. One could buy treasures from the era of the gods there, allowing one's strength to increase by leaps and bounds. Because of this, the exports of the final world flooded in. Everything was for God's shop. Chen Ting and the others had been training for this period of time for God's shop. Now, they had finally reached the end. Let's speed up. It won't be long before we can walk out of the swamp. Lin Ling was in a good mood. This was because God's shop was his hope to become stronger. After all, in the battle with Long Yang 3 years later, without any background, he would not be able to compete with martial God when Tian's disciple. Therefore, he would definitely not miss out on God's shop. Moreover, he could find Long Yang here. He believed that Long Yang was also here for God's shop. After a long time, the group finally walked out of the swamp. The ground and air in front of them were much drier. Stepping on hard ground, everyone was in a good mood. Looking around, other alliances were also walking out of the swamp. When they saw the high tower in the distance, they all smiled, just like Lin Ling and the others. This was because after a long journey, they had finally reached the end. Of course, this did not mean the end. In fact, just arriving at God's shop meant that the battle had just begun. Lin Ling had a deep understanding of this. After all, not long ago, Canon God was not the strongest in the 100 Leagues. However, he had almost forced Lin Ling to use all his strength. What about the 100 Leagues? At this moment, many excited voices came from behind. So many people. TSK, they're all experts. It seems like everyone wants to use God's shop to become stronger. I heard that there's 100 Leagues here. It was formed 3 months ago when the experts arrived. We want to join the 100 Leagues too. The so-called 100 Leagues depends on the number of people. Many people were walking along the dry land, chatting passionately. Hey, I'm Fan Hongyan, an expert from Yaoshan College's Shunsan Hall. Are you interested in joining our fan league? I'll give you money. Just name your price. A well-dressed young master suddenly said to the passers-by. At the same time, royal crystals were spilled out. It was obvious that he had a powerful background. He did not care about royal crystals at all. However, his strength was a little embarrassing. He was only on par with Zhuang Yanming. A person like him would not be able to become a leader if he did not rely on money. Moreover, although his alliance had many members, if they encountered a big storm, they would not be able to withstand a single blow. I already have an alliance. I'm not joining. Someone immediately refused. Beat them. Beat them until they join us. Chapter 3885. The 10 Overlords. Hey, did you see those who were beaten up? Are you joining the alliance? Yes. The group of people continued to move forward and soon caught up with Lin Ling and the others. The young master in the lead laughed again. Lin Ling and the others stopped in their tracks. They looked back and shook their heads. Lin Ling said calmly, the so-called 100 Alliance does not rely on numbers. It relies on elites. If you want us to join, you have to defeat him. Yes. After saying that, Lin Ling led Tianao and the rest forward again. They did not want to waste any more time. The one who stayed behind was the Platinum Evil Spirit. Oh, I gave you face and you became arrogant. Not bad, not bad. I, Fan Hongyan, like to fight against people who think they are outstanding. Men, take care of that stupid bodyguard. Yes. Fan Hongyan waved his fan confidently. However, they wanted to defeat the Platinum Evil Spirit with just a group of people. That was obviously impossible. In the time it took for 3 incense sticks to burn, everyone was smashed to the ground, and they all cried out in fear. No, don't catch me. I will not be a spicy strip. Yes. What the hell is this? Eating people? Yes. Everyone was scared out of their wits, especially Fan Hongyan. At this moment, he even threw away his folding fan. With snot and tears running down his face, he shouted, Masters, take him away. I agree to join your alliance. Okay? Yes. Now, he finally understood that numbers were useless. In the end, he still had to rely on strength. 1,000-people alliance could not stop one person from the other alliance. How could such an alliance enter the 100 Alliance? In front of the main road, Lin Ling and the rest smiled and continued to move forward. There were many people in front of them. These people looked cold and arrogant. Obviously, they were the masters of the 100 Alliance. They did not care about Fan Hongyan's trash alliance that relied on numbers, because they knew that such an alliance would definitely be eliminated. That person from the alliance should be from the Xianxia Hall. He doesn't belong to the strongest circle. Those who have been in the strongest circle know that there are always people who are stronger than them. Only the strong cultivators from the Xianxia Hall who are still in the college would think that they are stronger than them. Chenwu suddenly said with a smile, "There are two circles in Xianxia Hall. One circle was like Zhong Jin's group, who only cultivated in the academy. The other circle was outside all year round to gain experience. Their strength had long surpassed the limits of the academy. Only Huanyu was their sky. Just like the Snow Wind Academy, all of the Shun 3 halls belonged to the former. Therefore, although Lin Ling was famous in the Shun 3 halls of the various academies, he was only SOSO in the strongest circle. One had to know that within the 36 academies, experts were as common as clouds. People like Lin Ling who had appeared out of nowhere were not few in number. But if he wanted to shake the strongest circle, his current strength was clearly not enough. Lin Ling, you should be the one who fought with Longyang, right? I heard that you're one of the newcomer kings." At this moment, Chen Ting also looked at Lin Ling and said, during this period of time, she had been constantly searching through her memories and finally remembered the name Lin Ling. "Oh, you've heard of me?" Lin Ling couldn't help but be curious. This was because he had only just stepped into the strongest circle, which was why he was called one of the newcomer kings. "Hee, I suddenly remembered your name because of Longyang. Longyang is also a celebrity who appeared out of nowhere. Of course, the one who truly let us know of her is Wentian martial god. After all, the latter is one of the top 10 martial gods." Chen Ting immediately nodded. She was also one of the experts in the strongest circle. In their circle, although the name Longyang was unfamiliar, it was like a firework that bloomed brilliantly. In an instant, many people knew of it. I didn't expect that I would take advantage of Longyang's glory." Hearing this, Lin Ling immediately shook his head and smiled. It seemed that Wentian martial god had put in a lot of effort for Longyang. Otherwise, based on the current Longyang, she definitely wouldn't be so famous. Longyang, the number 1 newcomer king, has long been recognized by the experts in the strongest circle. Not long ago, in the Academy's martial arts competition, and now that she has entered One World Mountain, her strength and fame have increased by leaps and bounds. I heard that she seemed to have caught the eye of a god, and that god wants her to be a trial taker. Chun Ting said again, "However, this is only a rumor. I don't know if it's true or not." "Trial taker?" Lin Ling's eyes lit up. Could it be that Wentian martial god's recommendation of his disciple with great fanfare was also for the trial taker? "What's One World Mountain?" Lin Ling then asked again. "It's the same as the Kai Yuan River. It's also a place where the experts in the strongest circle like to explore. It's also a place where opportunities and dangers coexist. There's a heritage crystal there, and it's said that it can inherit the position of a god." Chen Ting suddenly said. Her eyes were burning with passion. She seemed to be looking forward to One World Mountain. It could be seen that she had also been to One World Mountain. However, because of her strength, she might not have gone very far. Lin Ling could not help but sigh. He was constantly getting stronger, and Longyang was also getting stronger. The two of them were like a race to see who could run faster and who could rush out of the sky. As for Longyang, Lin Ling did not dare to underestimate her. Over the years, he had seen countless monstrous geniuses. However, there were very few people like Longyang who grew by leaps and bounds. As Lin Ling and the others got closer and closer to the tower, Tian Ao and the others' faces became dignified. Experts. Because the whole mountain was filled with experts, they should be the top experts in the Xianxia Hall among the major academies. Such an expert to the Snow Wind Academy was undoubtedly extremely rare. These experts should only be a part of it. Yes, Lin Ling also said indifferently. He had already discovered a few existences that were not weaker than Canon God. For example, Wanyan Bu Pa from the Demon Forest was just an ordinary existence here. Lin Ling even discovered that there were a few people who were not weaker than him. Their talent had probably reached the 10th grade. Those experts stood quietly on a mountain peak. A powerful pressure filled the air, making people not dare to approach. The scary thing was that they were all very young, but their strength was so strong that even the old monsters were in awe. That person's strength is probably not weaker than mine. His ancestral power should have reached 100%, and he is half a step into the martial god realm. Although his talent is not as high as mine, his realm makes up for the gap. Yes, and that person has the aura of an innate divine weapon. I'm afraid that he has reached the 3rd grade. If my tyrannical song sword is fully activated, then I still have a chance to compete with him. Otherwise, with the current tyrannical song sword, it is obviously still weak. Yes, there is a martial god realm expert there. TSK. Such a young martial god realm expert is really rare. Lin Ling kept muttering to himself. He fully understood what it meant to have experts as many as the clouds. Of course, not only him, even those who came here for the first time sucked in a breath of cold air at this moment. The 100 Great Alliance is led by the 10 Overlords. Chapter 3886. The situation in the ancient dragon wasteland. What is the 100 Alliance? Where are the 10 Overlords? A curious voice immediately came. After all, they were late by 3 months, so there were many things they did not understand. The 100 Great Alliance is the strongest 100 alliances in the ancient dragon wasteland. The other smaller alliances have all been absorbed by them. The 100 Great Alliance is the leader, and within the 100 Great Alliance, the 10 Overlords are the strongest. That person said word by word. The 10 Overlords are like the 10 tallest mountains, dominating the gods' shop. Other than the trial of gods, no one dares to provoke them. If you meet them outside the god's shop, then not only will all your gains be robbed, you will even be swallowed and then join their alliance. If you refuse, then you will die. The 10 Overlords are so powerful, but do they have the strength? No strength. What a joke. The person who spoke swept his gaze across the crowd. Seeing everyone's serious expression, his mouth raised into a contemptuous smile. The 10 Overlords are the Heaven Alliance. The Heaven Alliance is currently the strongest among the 10 Overlords. It is the combination of the Duan Alliance and the Heaven-Seeking Alliance. Hearing this, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Miao Continent's #1 family and the new Heavenly Court's Elite Alliance? No wonder they are so powerful. In the crowd, Lin Ling also frowned. He never thought that these two enemies would actually form an alliance. If he, Lin Ling, encountered them, then the trouble would not be small. The second is the Immortal Devil Alliance. This is the alliance of the 9 continents' 10 ferocious immortal temple and the Great Devil Sect. That person spoke again. 9 continents, 10 ferocious. Everyone's expression changed again. Although they already knew that they would encounter the 9 continents, 10 ferocious, they did not expect these two ancient beasts to form an alliance. Immortal Temple. Lin Ling suddenly became excited. Sure enough, the Immortal Temple was here. The third is the Death Alliance, the land of eternal slumber of heroic spirits. The most important thing is that the first leader came out this time. Therefore, although the land of eternal slumber of heroic spirits did not form an alliance with the other alliance, the first leader came out personally. One had to know that although the other alliances were powerful, the strongest experts of their respective forces had not come. For example, the Duan Clan Alliance, their Duan lineage martial god, had not come. If the land of eternal slumber wanted to go against the Duan Clan's alliance, they would definitely need to send out their leader. It seems that these alliances are at odds with each other, which is to my advantage, Lin Ling said secretly, since Wanyan Bupo was killed by him. The place where the heroic spirit rested would definitely seek him for revenge. Furthermore, the Duan clan was also eyeing him covetously. Fortunately, these people were not on the same side, and they were also opponents, and this was beneficial to Lin Ling. The fourth is the Creation Alliance. Speaking of which, this alliance is very mysterious. Currently, no one knows what kind of power created it, but all the people who encountered this alliance were killed. The fifth is the Alliance of True Disciples. According to legend, it is an alliance formed by the true disciples of Miao God and the Miao God dynasty. And these are all famous alliances, formed by old monsters, seniors, and others. That person spoke without stopping. Everyone was digesting his words, and their hearts became more and more solemn. It seemed that the opening of the god's shop had indeed attracted the strongest forces in the 9 regions. However, the 10 overlords are not only old monsters and seniors. In fact, in the ancient Dragon Wasteland, there are even more experts from the 36 academies, so there are 5 new overlords. That person quietly waited for a moment, and when the newcomers had digested most of the information, he spoke lightly. These 5 new overlords are all from the younger generation. The first is the 7th Emperor Alliance. This alliance only recruits people of the Emperor's generation. There are many experts, and the Emperor's aura surges to the sky. Unless you are a subordinate of an emperor, you are not qualified to join. The second is the Fengyun Tower. This is also an extremely powerful alliance. It is said that currently, they have gathered more than 30,000 experts. Hearing this, someone immediately shouted, 30,000, that's too exaggerated. It's not exaggerated. Moreover, 30,000 experts, none of them are weak. The weak will be eliminated. The third is the Freedom Sword Alliance. The masters of this alliance are the 10 martial gods. Because the mine is very close to here, the alliance is very powerful. The fourth is the Northern Dragon Ice Alliance. This is an extremely mysterious alliance. It is said that there are many beauties inside. Of course, there are many beauties, but their strength is also very strong. The fifth is the Tiandi Alliance. This is an extremely mysterious alliance. The overall strength, the strength of the leader, is currently a mystery. A soft voice like the wind floated out. The surrounding mountains were very quiet. The people of each alliance were digesting this information. After all, they're the newcomers. Unless their strength is heaven-defying, they still have to follow the rules of the ancient Dragon Wasteland. And these 10 overlords are the kings of the 100 Alliance. However, in the next 3 months, it is said that many people will come. The number of people will probably reach 1 million, and all of them are experts. Therefore, the 100 Alliance will only become stronger and stronger. The position of the 10 overlords will never be surpassed. To be honest, I said so much because I'm a member of the Fengyun Tower. This time, I'm also recruiting you. That person finally said his purpose. It turned out that he wanted to represent the Fengyun Tower to swallow these newcomers' alliances. Upon seeing this, everyone frowned slightly. I know that you are all experts and proud, and do not want to be under others. However, I also want to tell you that this is the general trend. A small alliance is not possible because a small alliance cannot challenge the 100 Alliance. If you want to survive, you have to join. Since you want to join the 100 Alliance, why not join the Fengyun Tower? We are, after all, one of the 10 overlords. This is my advice to you. Of course, whether you want to join or not is up to you. However, there is only one chance. Don't miss it. That person had his hands behind his back, showing his strength. He is a half-step martial god expert. I'll join. I'll join too. However, many people spoke up. They all came from the final world and knew the rules there. Unless you have absolute strength, if you have a strong background or connections, then the pressure to survive will be greatly reduced. Of course, there were also many people who remained silent. These people were more cautious and planned to make a decision after they understood everything. Moreover, there were some confident people among these people. They did not plan to join any alliance. Fengyun Tower, Skyfire, are you bewitching the newcomers again? For the past 3 months, Fengyun Tower has been madly recruiting newcomers. Are you relying on this kind of brainwashing method? However, at that moment, a mocking laugh suddenly came from afar. Then, a large number of young men in dragon robes appeared on a mountain peak. Imperial chi surged, as if they were the emperor. This was the 7th Imperial Alliance. Looking at those experts, the man named Skyfire frowned and became silent. He seemed to be somewhat fearful. However, he did not dare to speak. This did not mean that the Fengyun Tower he was in did not dare to speak. Chapter 3887. God's Store. Seventh Emperor Alliance. Scram. Stop acting all high and mighty. You're just a bunch of country bumpkins. A bunch of trash that only knows how to talk and not do anything. These people were obviously the leaders of Fengyan Tower. They were not afraid of the Seventh Emperor Alliance. Haha, do you think Fengyan Tower only knows how to use such despicable methods? Gathering people from all the academies and then doing things for you. The golden fleece flower is so pitiful. Do you really think others are idiots? However, if you continue to be unjust, you'll be doomed. Just wait. When this matter is exposed, your alliance will automatically collapse. A young man from the Seventh Emperor Alliance said calmly. 9 dragons of different colors were circling around him. Most importantly, this person was a martial god expert. With such strength, he could be ranked in the top 200 on the heavenly stairway. Just wait and see. The experts from Fengyan Tower didn't care about the Seventh Emperor Alliance's warning. In fact, they were very angry, but they suppressed it because they noticed that another monstrous overlord had appeared on the other side. They didn't want to be the bystander and reap the spoils later. That was why they remained silent. And that was the Northern Dragon Ice Kingdom Alliance. In addition, the Unrestrained Sword Alliance had also appeared. Compared to Fengyan Tower, these two alliances would also devour other smaller alliances. However, they would only accept the elites. On the other hand, Fengyan Tower devoured both the strong and the weak. This was the difference. Fengyan Tower had the worst reputation among the 100 alliances. There were even rumors that if this continued, the 100 alliances would be eliminated and devoured. In the end, only the 10 overlords would be left. Outside of the Tiandi League, the other 4 overlords have appeared. It seems like they're all going against each other. In the crowd, Tian Ao saw these experts fighting and couldn't help but say in a serious tone, if the sky falls down, these tall people will block it. We should just keep quiet and make a fortune. Lin Ling didn't care and smiled. There are many experts in the ancient dragon desolate ground. Small alliances like us won't be a thorn in their side. Thus, the more powerful alliances appear, the better. Lin Ling is right. When those great gods fight, us mortals should focus on increasing our strength. Chen Ting immediately agreed. However, there were quite a few people who had the same thoughts as Lin Ling and the others. Many people's eyes were burning with desire. On the surface, they were led by the 10 overlords, but in reality, if they had the chance to exchange for treasures from the Shop of Gods, they could also soar into the sky. After all, the 100 Realms Alliance had entered 3 months earlier than them. They had an innate advantage. It was not the right time for them to fight head-on. Ancient Dragon Wasteland, 20,000 people came in the first month, 50,000 people came in the second month, 80,000 people came in the third month. I'm afraid there will be around 150,000 people this month, and in the following days, there will be even more people. At this moment, an aged voice suddenly resounded, causing the surrounding mountains to go silent. All the overlords were silent. In the distant tower, the clouds finally dispersed, revealing a huge palace. The palace was mysterious and had no doors or windows, only a huge platform. And on the platform, a white-haired old man stood there with a smile, his eyes looking at the dense crowd. When they saw the old man, everyone's face turned serious, especially those from the 100 Realms Alliance. They clearly knew that this person was the 10th grade divine paladin, one of the 4 great gods, the Kirishin. He was also the caretaker of the Shop of Gods. All the treasures were exchanged through that person. As for the palace behind the old man, it should be the Shop of Gods. However, although there were countless treasures in the palace, it was obvious that no one dared to snatch them. Everyone was doing things according to the rules. You guys have come from far away, all for the divine treasure. Now that you have come here after so many twists and turns, I'm sure you newcomers are very curious about what the Shop of Gods has. The old man smiled faintly, his voice spreading to the surrounding mountains. Everyone licked their lips and looked at the old man. Their expressions were like children waiting to be given candy. All right, I'll stop teasing you. All right, I won't tease you anymore. I'll get straight to the point. There are countless treasures in God's shop. and they are divided into 5 categories. The first category is God's inheritance treasures, which were collected by Lord Black God. They were left behind by the gods of the old gods era, and they were the treasures of their entire lives. There are 4 of them in total, and if you want to exchange for them, you need a lot of things. The old man smiled and pointed to the sky, as if an immortal was guiding the way. Suddenly, 4 big words appeared in the sky. Wind, forest, fire, mountain. These are the 4 lower gods of the old gods era. They had fallen, so their treasures were left behind. It was like a treasure house, and one only needed to exchange for the corresponding treasures. Divine treasure. Everyone trembled, and they were so excited that they almost fell to the ground. That feeling was as if those treasures belonged to them. Of course, although some of the calmer people were excited, they clearly knew that obtaining one of the 4 treasures was more difficult than ascending to the heavens. The second type is the divine embryo inheritance. There are a total of 6 of them. Those who obtain the divine embryo will surpass the ultimate desolate body, becoming a god in one step. As for what divine embryo they are, I can only say that they are lower god divine embryos. If you can obtain them, you will benefit greatly. The old man said again, divine embryo inheritance? Heavens! Many people held their breaths. The limit of the ultimate desolate body was to transform into a divine embryo. Therefore, the divine embryo inheritance also represented the complete transformation from a mortal to a god. Those who had divine embryos were true gods, and 6 divine embryos meant that 6 people could become gods. The third type is the wondrous treasures. It records all kinds of rare treasures, a total of 8,432 kinds. I will not introduce them one by one. I will give you 3 incense sticks worth of time to take a look. Light bloomed in the sky, as if flowers were sprinkling in every corner. A large number of treasure phantoms appeared, as treasure light soared into the sky. Everyone held their breaths as they stared intently at the sky. Even Lin Ling and company were the same. They were all looking for treasures that were suitable for them. Fruit of fortune, fruit of good, fruit of fate. All of them are available. Soon, Lin Ling's body trembled. He had found the treasure he needed. There were all 3 kinds of fruits. This gave Lin Ling a shock. This shop of God was indeed rich. This also meant that his trip to the ancient Dragon Desolate Land was not in vain. Dragon Ball? Murder clothes? Following that, Lin Ling saw a rare treasure that could increase his talent. Dragon Ball was clearly an item that could increase the Dragon God's talent. As for the murder clothes? Chapter 3888. The use of the golden fleece flower. As for the great ominous person, it represented an ominous aura. Naturally, it did not fear the divine ominous clothing. The ominous clothing was suitable for increasing the talent of the realm-swallowing beast. Other than that, Lin Ling also saw many rare treasures. Some could increase one's physical strength, some could increase one's realm essence, ancestral power, and other fruits. Lin Ling also saw flowers that could increase one's dantian. Of course, one could only consume one flower to increase one's dantian. It was much worse than the chaos deity formula. Other than increasing one's dantian, there were also many inheritances of ultimate desolate physiques. Some had limits similar to the time and space divine steel, while others had limits that exceeded the time and space divine steel. As for the most basic treasures that could increase one's cultivation level, they were as numerous as the hairs on a cow. They were also divided into different types, such as fire, wind, and so on. You have seen enough. Now let's move on to the 4th type, the divine type. As time passed, the old man smiled again and waved his right hand. This time, martial arts and divine abilities appeared. These martial arts and divine abilities were all left behind from the era of gods. They were extremely powerful. Lin Ling even saw an incomplete version of the calamity destroying Sun Bao. Furthermore, he saw the illusionary god world. It could be said that more than half of the divine abilities and martial arts that had appeared in the 9 prefectures had appeared here. There were also many martial arts and divine abilities that had never appeared in the 9 prefectures before. As for the 5th category, it was the various divine artifacts. There were acquired divine artifacts, innate divine artifacts, and some of them were even apocalyptic treasures that could kill martial gods. Of course, although these treasures were terrifying, they had corresponding side effects. Therefore, although they seemed to be powerful, they were also ranked last in the divine artifacts category. Divine inheritance treasures, divine embryos, mystical treasures, divine arts, and divine weapons. The 5 types of treasures were displayed one after another, especially the 1st and 2nd types. These were undoubtedly rare treasures that could not be bought even if one had the money. This was because these were all necessary to become a god. Everyone's eyes continued to flicker, and all of them revealed the same expression. It was a desire to possess, and it was as if they wanted to take all the treasures for themselves. Their hearts were also pounding nonstop. When he saw their expressions, the old man on the platform just smiled without saying a word. It was as if he knew what they were thinking. The elders of the Great 100 Alliance were also smiling, but they weren't mocking him. This was because they had the same expression when they first saw God shop. This silence lasted for an entire hour. The people's excited gazes gradually calmed down. Lin Ling was the same. He clenched his fists and gradually calmed down because he knew that although the treasure was tempting, he had to be able to obtain it. Therefore, the most important thing was how to exchange for it. There is no lack of smart people among you. From your eyes, I can see that you want to know how to exchange for treasures. Then, I'll tell you, golden fleece flower, everything can be exchanged with golden fleece flower. The old man looked at the crowd mysteriously. A golden light appeared in his hand. Then, the light gradually dimmed and turned into a golden knotweed. What is this? As for the golden fleece flower, many people were obviously confused. Is it that thing? On the other hand, Lin Ling and the others' expressions changed, especially Tianao and the others. They looked at Lin Ling in disbelief. This was because Lin Ling had a golden fleece flower in his hand. This golden fleece flower was taken from Huang Lu. At that time, they had expended all their efforts to get it. When they thought of how the Canon Gods Alliance attacked Huang Tong, the mystery in their hearts was suddenly solved. It was all because of the golden fleece flower. No wonder. Lin Ling also had a golden fleece flower in his hand. He smiled. Not long ago, he felt that this golden light was the key. Now, it seemed that it was indeed the case. Of course, other than Lin Ling, many people in the surrounding hills also had golden fleece flower. At this moment, they were looking at the treasures in their hands in shock. Hee, some of you are very careful and have already collected some golden fleece flower. This shows that you are very curious about the treasures of heaven and earth. However, I can tell you that these golden fleece flower are of no use to you. If you want, you can exchange them for treasures in God's shop. And for those who have golden fleece flower, you can immediately open God's shop. The old man's voice floated out like the wind, causing those who had golden fleece flower to smile excitedly. They had put in so much effort to get the golden fleece flower, which gave them extraordinary privileges. Is it useless? Compared to the others, Lin Ling did not express his opinion. This was because he faintly felt that the golden fleece flower had an effect, which was to train one's willpower. Willpower was something that martial artists could do without, but it was also something that they could not do without. Most of the time, willpower could not be easily displayed, so most martial artists did not care much about it. Moreover, Lin Ling suddenly remembered that the Kirishin had once told him that Shaolin was the host of the will of the world. The will of the world was very likely to use Shaolin's body to revive in this world. What Shaolin could do was to use his willpower to resist. Could it be that all of this had happened because of Shaolin? Thinking of this, Lin Ling gasped. The Kirishin was too generous. Of course, this was only Lin Ling's conjecture. Lin Ling, hand over the golden fleece flower. At this time, Chen Ting nudged Lin Ling, causing Lin Ling to react. He looked over and saw that those who had golden fleece flower had already handed over their golden fleece flower. In exchange, those people also had a jade token in their hands. Immediately, Lin Ling followed suit, causing many people to be envious. After all, they did not have golden fleece flower, so they could only watch as Lin Ling's group familiarized themselves with God's shop. And those who had a jade token in their hands immediately checked it. They immediately realized that the jade token had a blood-binding effect. It was like a chinkoan bag that could be used to store items. Moreover, it could be used to purchase items. This meant that even if they were not on the platform, they could directly exchange for treasures. However, there was a rule. They could only exchange for the last 2 treasures. The first 3 treasures had to be exchanged on the platform. In addition to this, there was another benefit. That was, the prices of the 5th type of divine weapon treasures had all appeared. Flying boots increased speed by 500 worlds, 10 golden fleece flower. Sky treading boots increased speed by 800 worlds, 50 golden fleece flower. Divine sky boots increase speed by 1,000 worlds, 100 golden fleece flower. Yu Wang sword increase power by 50%, 50 golden fleece flower. Yu Wang divine sword increase power by 80%, 100 golden fleece flower. Chapter 3889. The Giant Ghost Reminder. Ranked 2nd was the Curse of the Gods. It had a mysterious power and could seal a martial god. There were a total of 5 curses, and the price was 50,000 golden fleece flower. Of course, although these most expensive divine weapons were powerful, they were all consumables. However, to kill a martial god, everyone who had a jade pendant sucked in a breath of cold air. If they had such a taboo treasure in their hands, why would the martial god fear them? However, 100,000 golden fleece flower? It was so scary. After all, they had only obtained a single golden fleece flower after battling the desolate tree and other poisonous creatures. 100,000? He didn't know how many he would have to kill. Even if he died in the mouth of the poisonous tree, he wouldn't be able to complete the task. Looking at the other treasures, the lowest starting price was 10 golden fleece flower. Expensive, too expensive. Lin Ling was also looking at the jade token. His gaze finally landed on the great heaven world destruction flag, and his breathing instantly became heavy. He had killed the martial god. He immediately thought of martial god Wen Tian. With the treasures left behind by the deities and his familiarity with Wen Tian martial god, it would not be a problem to kill him. Lin Ling's eyes lit up in an instant. He was extremely excited. He knew it was not difficult to kill Wen Tian martial god, but it would take some time, and he didn't want to wait that long. Therefore, if he had these treasures, he would be able to shorten the time by half. Remember, there is only one treasure. If you buy it, it's gone. So, if you see something you like, buy it as soon as possible, especially the 6 divine embryos. Haha, if you miss it, it's gone. Also, if you have a jade token, you can only see the price of the 4th divine artifact if you buy the 5th divine artifact, and only then can you see the price of the 3rd divine artifact, and so on. At this moment, the old man's smiling voice drifted out once more. As soon as these words were spoken, all the people in the surrounding mountains became excited. Their eyes were filled with madness. Boom, boom. There was a roar in his heart. They had obviously gone mad for these treasures. Go, open your path to becoming stronger. The 100 Great Alliance, after the gods, heroes will rise together. Who can stand against you? When the old man's last words drifted out, the people in the various mountain ranges began to disperse. That was because even though there seemed to be a lot of treasures, they could still be bought up, especially treasures that one had taken a fancy to. If it was bought by someone else, then it would be gone. Therefore, people wanted to gain the upper hand by making the first move. Moreover, in order to obtain a jade plate, one must obtain the first golden fleece flower to exchange for a jade plate. This was the first step everyone had to take. They are very excited, but when they realize the danger of the wasteland, their excitement will slowly be suppressed. The powerhouses of the Great 100 Alliance smiled faintly as they watched the newcomers leave. Because the treasures were rare, the competition was fierce. Only a true dragon could rise to prominence. At this moment, Lin Ling and the others had also left the tower area and were rushing outside. TSK, what a crazy treasure. Even the giant ghost, who was beside Lin Ling, said, I actually saw the immortal fruit. According to legend, those who have this fruit will not die even when they are at the martial god realm. They will not die even once. Hearing this, Lin Ling's eyes burned with passion, but he calmed down and said, there are many treasures, and they are all very rare. However, if we want to obtain them, we will need more golden fleece flower. Currently, it seems that it will be difficult for us to obtain even one golden fleece flower, let alone hundreds or thousands. Lin Ling could not help but think of the desolate willow. That monster was at the martial god realm, and it was killed in the process of refining it. What if they wanted to kill the desolate willow in their prime? It would be difficult. Moreover, the golden fleece flower was rare. Therefore, if the other alliances encountered the desolate willow, they would not miss it. If you don't kill it, they will. It would be like robbing a treasure. Lin Ling, this golden fleece flower is unique to the Kaiyuan River. According to legend, it is also one of the world wills. However, this is only the world will of the Kaiyuan River, and it is produced continuously. The golden fleece flower that you encountered before was devoured by the monster. In fact, there are many golden fleece flower that have not been discovered by the monster. At this time, the giant ghost spoke again. Lin Ling's eyes narrowed. The giant ghost seems to be very familiar with the golden fleece flower. Giant ghost, do you know where those golden fleece flower are? Lin Ling stopped and asked excitedly. This also made Tian Ao and the others curious, but they did not stop Lin Ling. The giant ghost used a voice that only Lin Ling could hear and said faintly, I can only find the general direction, and this is only a general direction. However, if your evil ghost jellyfish enters the ground, in addition to the small Kunlun, then the search for the golden fleece flower will be clearer. This can also work. Lin Ling was stunned. He did not think of this method. Moreover, if this method could work, then why didn't the others use it? The underground of the ancient Dragon Desolate Land is extremely ancient. It can also block many detection methods. Even for those experts who are proficient in water and earth element, their methods would be like stones sinking into the sea after entering the ground. The reason is that this desolate land can only allow the monster tree to grow. However, the small Kunlun is also a tree. Therefore, it is not afraid of the law of the ground. The giant ghost said. Lin Ling immediately looked at the small Kunlun. The small Kunlun's consciousness followed Lin Ling's arm and swam towards the ground. It looked like a desolate vine. Moreover, it swam deeper and deeper, like a fish in water. Seeing this, Tian Ao and the others were stunned. What was Lin Ling doing? Suddenly releasing a plant and then standing there like a fool? This Lin Ling, we have not obtained a jade token. We must immediately obtain a golden fleece flower to exchange for a jade token. Do you think we should hurry? Shen Ting whispered. Boom. However, just as she finished speaking, the soil on the ground began to churn. A black vine was growing. When it reached the height of a human, the leaves on the vine shone with golden light. When the leaves opened, a golden fleece flower the size of a small stone appeared. Damn, isn't that the golden fleece flower? What's going on? What the hell is this vine? Tian Ao and the others were stunned. Then they were overjoyed. This was because they did not expect Lin Ling to find the golden fleece flower so quickly. There were many people who were passing by. When they saw this, they were jealous and almost wanted to snatch it. However, after hesitating for a while, they quickly left. Perhaps they thought that since Lin Ling and the others could find the golden fleece flower so easily, there should be many outside. However, only the people from the Great 100 Alliance knew that there were many golden fleece flower outside. However, the prerequisite was that you could find it and obtain it. Compared to Tian Ao and the others who were overjoyed, Lin Ling was almost going crazy. This was because when the small Kunlun entered the ground, it began to take root and germinate. It began to produce branches and leaves. Everything within a radius of 1,000 miles was under its control. This meant that if there were many golden fleece flower underground, the small Kunlun could immediately find it and dig it out. If it went to a place where there were many golden fleece flower, wouldn't it be easy to obtain the golden fleece flower? Boom, boom. Chapter 3890. This was shocking news. Treasure. He would be able to buy all the treasures he wanted. Let's go. Let's get out of here. Lin Ling's eyes were red as he hurriedly led everyone away. At this moment, everyone's jaws dropped. They were surprised that Lin Ling was so excited, but they quickly followed after Lin Ling. On the ancient wasteland, Lin Ling sprinted all the way as if he had gone mad. Beside him was the giant ghost, and behind him was the golden white evil ghost. Wherever they passed, the passers-by were stunned, and then many people from the Great 100 Alliance laughed mockingly. Hee, this must be a newbie. Do you think that golden fleece flower is everywhere? He's treating the golden fleece flower as a radish. In a while, he will know what a golden fleece flower is. When he walks out of the wasteland, he won't even see a single hair of the golden fleece flower, let alone a golden fleece flower. It's not easy to find one, but it was refined by those poisonous creatures. Don't bother about him. A newbie is a newbie. He doesn't know any better. Those people said disdainfully and headed in another direction, and beside them, Tianao and the others also quickly passed by. After hearing those words, their faces turned ugly. In fact, they already knew that the golden fleece flower was not easy to get. They didn't need those people to tell them what to do. But what surprised them was why Lin Ling was so excited. No, it shouldn't be that he was excited, but that he had gone mad, as if he had seen an endless amount of treasure. Lin Ling, haven't you always been very calm? Chen Ting blinked and asked. Chen Wu instantly shook his head helplessly. Perhaps Lin Ling was bewildered by those treasures as well. Alas, even though the treasures are tempting, what's the point of being unable to obtain them? Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and follow Lin Ling. Tianao and the rest said as they ran. They had been running for 6 hours. If it wasn't for the fact that Lin Ling's route was not dangerous, they would have given up halfway. Not long after, the group arrived at a red earth ruin. Looking around, it could be said that this was a desolate place. Not to mention plants, there are not even many rocks. Moreover, the ground was hard, comparable to a salt pan. Chen Ting and the others were speechless. Lin Ling had been running like crazy and then came to this place. No matter how he looked at it, there didn't seem to be any golden fleece flower here. At this moment, Lin Ling looked at everyone with a smile. That smile made everyone's hair stand on end. They almost thought that Lin Ling had gone crazy. After all, how could Lin Ling smile in such a stingy place? Do you guys think I'm crazy? As if he knew what everyone was thinking, Lin Ling looked at them with a smile. However, this smile made Tianao and the others think that Lin Ling was crazy. In the end, Wu Jiang nodded. They don't dare to say it, so I'll say it. I really think so. After all, even though the God store is rare, it requires the golden fleece flower to exchange for it. Moreover, the golden fleece flower is extremely difficult to obtain. Leader, you should have seen it for yourself. In the end, he still didn't dare to challenge Lin Ling's position too much, so he also called him leader in the end. Of course, his words also represented everyone's thoughts. Everyone looked at Lin Ling eagerly. Lin Ling shrugged and said calmly, "The reason why I'm so excited is because I've already found more than 100 golden fleece flower. Moreover, they're right under our feet." The giant ghost knew the general direction of the golden fleece flower, and Lil Kunlun could find the exact location. Therefore, Lin Ling was extremely confident. What? More than 100? Leader, you're not joking, right? Yeah, we were almost swallowed by the wild willow for a golden fleece flower. Now, you're saying that there are more than 100? Big brother, tell me, is this a lie? Everyone said at the same time. Their eyes were burning, and smoke was coming out of their nostrils. That was because they couldn't ignore the God store. They just didn't have the confidence to obtain the treasures inside. However, Lin Ling said that he could obtain more than 100 golden fleece flower. How could they not be tempted? Immediately, Lin Ling didn't hide anything. He roughly explained Lil Kunlun's abilities. The more he spoke, the faster Tian Ao and the rest's hearts beat. That was because they knew that the wasteland's underground was very mysterious. It was as if it was a world of its own. Only those poisonous creatures could survive here. That was why those poisonous creatures were extremely powerful. However, Lin Ling's vines could also work. Lin Ling, are you sure? Tian Ao's eyes were bloodshot, and his body was trembling. Lin Ling, don't lie to me. Don't give me hope, and then kill it. Chen Ting and her sister were also shouting in shock. Looking at their faces, they were all going crazy. They were as excited as Lin Ling was previously. In fact, they were even more excited than him. Lil Kunlun, it's up to you. Lin Ling nodded at everyone. The vines on his left arm extended out and then entered the ground. The wasteland didn't seem to hinder the growth of plants. After Lil Kunlun entered the ground, it immediately grew up crazily. Those roots and vines were like a spider web, spreading in all directions. Moreover, they went deeper and deeper, as if they were about to break through the limits of the wasteland. Tian Ao and the rest looked at Lin Ling anxiously. At the same time, they were on high alert so that no one would disturb Lin Ling. Evil Ghost Jellyfish, go! Lin Ling immediately summoned the Evil Ghost Jellyfish. Instantly, the jellyfish followed the vines and started to search in all directions. 1 golden fleece flower. 2, 3. Lin Ling's eyes became brighter and brighter. The corners of his mouth curled up into an excited smile. There's a chance. Look at the smile on our leader's face. There must be a chance. Looking at Lin Ling's expression, everyone felt as if they were struck by lightning. Zhuang Yinming was even drooling. If it weren't for the fact that they had to be on high alert, they would have held hands and danced. After a while, Lin Ling finally raised his head and looked at everyone solemnly. Leader, how many are there? Everyone looked at Lin Ling. 323. Lin Ling said in a low voice. Fuck. Tian Ao roared angrily. So many. Chen Ting and her brother's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Their jaws almost hit the ground. We're rich. We're going to be rich. Luo Wuchang circled around Lin Ling excitedly. The corners of his mouth were trembling. 320. How many treasures could they buy with that? Indeed, we're going to be rich. This is only a small part of the golden fleece flower in the wasteland. There are countless golden fleece flower in the entire wasteland. If we collect all of them, we might even be able to buy the god's legacy treasure. Lin Ling's eyes were bloodshot. He was obviously very excited. You guys stay here and guard this place. I'll ask the evil ghost jellyfish and Lil Kunlun to bring all the golden fleece flower here. Lin Ling instructed solemnly. All right, Lin Ling, go ahead. Even if the god comes, I'll block him for you. Tian Ao roared immediately. Chen Ting, who was beside him, kicked him. Why are you shouting so loudly? Aren't you afraid that others will hear you? Then, everyone dispersed and looked around vigilantly. Chapter 3891. Dig, dig, dig. Lin Ling controlled the evil ghost jellyfish and swam along the vines. When it found a golden fleece flower, it immediately absorbed it. Then, with little Kunlun's help, it continuously brought the golden fleece flowers up. 1, 2, 10, 100. Lin Ling could sense the increasing number of golden fleece flowers. He licked his lips excitedly. Of course, these golden fleece flowers were hidden very well. Therefore, even if they knew the location, it would take a lot of time to dig them up. Little Kunlun alone couldn't do this. Its roots could only sense the location of the golden fleece flowers, but it couldn't dig them up. That was because little Kunlun couldn't take care of everything. Therefore, Lin Ling's soul power came into play. He let the evil ghost jellyfish collect them. Looks like it's not easy to dig up the golden fleece flowers. Chen Ting and the rest were on guard. When they sensed that time had passed, they started to speak. Of course, because even the demonic trees here can only devour 1 golden fleece flower. Moreover, the ground of this barren land is very hard. I'm afraid it's even harder underground. Finding a golden fleece flower is like finding a needle in a haystack. Even Lin Ling has to spend so much time. What about the people from the other alliances? No wonder the alliances are fighting each other. It's impossible to gather the golden fleece flowers alone. Most importantly, they can only fight the demonic trees and other things. In the end, they only get one golden fleece flower. What we are gathering are the golden fleece flowers that even the demonic trees can't find. Haha, talking about this makes me happy. Moreover, even if the alliances have the means to find the golden fleece flowers, they can't grow as fast as little Kunlun. The more Tianao and the rest chatted, the happier they were. Rumble. After a long time, the ground trembled slightly. Then, little Kunlun appeared on Lin Ling's shoulder. Lin Ling looked at little Kunlun gratefully. Little guy, it's been hard on you. Don't worry, I'll buy the treasures you need for you. Hearing this, little Kunlun immediately shook its head happily and told Lin Ling that it didn't need any treasures. It only needed the 10,000 spirits water. Lin Ling immediately patted its buds. Of course, he wouldn't just give it the 10,000 spirit water. If he had enough golden fleece flower, he would also let little Kunlun transform again. But now, little Kunlun had been tempered by the myriad spirit water. Its regenerative ability and vitality had become even stronger. Even if the entire vine forest was destroyed, the main sapling would be fine. Everything could be restored. Lin Ling, how much have you found? At this moment, Tianao and the rest all ran over, their faces full of anticipation. There are numbered 323 trees. Seeing their excited looks, Lin Ling also smiled. His words made Tianao and the others stunned. Could it be that there was a mistake midway? It's 357. That's more than a dozen. Lin Ling's smile didn't change. Then he took out the blood-binding jade token and flung it lightly. Golden light shone resplendently, and precious light rushed into the heavens. The ground was covered with golden fleece flowers. Wow, we're rich. Tianao and the rest stared at the golden fleece flowers in front of them. Then they all shouted. Zhuang Yinming even fell to his knees in an exaggerated manner. Take your share. Lin Ling also looked at them excitedly and said, Lin Ling, we're just in charge of guarding. You're the one who's digging. How about this? You take the biggest share, and we only take 1/5. How about that? At this moment, Tianao calmed down and suggested, Of course, if you think it's too much, we can take 1/10 as well. 1/10. So far, there were 3 golden fleece flowers. Moreover, it had only been a few hours. Therefore, this was a profit for them. After all, other people might not be able to find even 1 golden fleece flower in a day, unless it was those big alliances. That's right. The rest immediately nodded their heads. Without Lin Ling, they wouldn't have been able to get a single golden fleece flower. This was something they knew very well. This won't do. After all, you're part of the Godslayer Alliance. I'm never stingy with my own people. How about this? You take 1/3. How about that? Lin Ling immediately shook his head. This was because he knew that digging for golden fleece flowers was not like digging for carrots. It would be difficult for him to do it alone. He needed everyone's help. Chun Ting and the rest were suddenly put in a difficult position. All right, I'm the leader. I have a final say. Moreover, let's not dwell on this issue because we don't have much time left. In another month, there might be 1 million experts coming here. It's even possible that there might be 2 million. Therefore, we have to get as many golden fleece flowers as possible before they arrive. Also, go and exchange for jade plates immediately. After that, we'll dig again. When we reach 500 golden fleece flowers, immediately buy the heavenly boots. That's a 3rd grade innate divine weapon. It can increase the speed of 1,000 boundaries. This way, our digging speed will be even faster. Lin Ling continued. All right. Chun Ting and the rest followed Lin Ling's lead blindly. Following that, Lin Ling continued to move forward under the lead of the giant ghost. However, less than 10,000 miles later, the giant ghost found a large number of golden fleece flowers again. This time, there were even more of them. Ha ha ha! Lin Ling and the rest laughed loudly. This time, the golden fleece flowers were dug out. They could buy. They also wanted to arm themselves to the teeth with divine weapons. This was because they knew that they would definitely encounter enemies in the process of digging. If they were not strong enough, they would not be able to defend themselves no matter how many golden fleece flowers they had. To the east, 297 trees, 121 trees in the west. South, 205. Oh my God, there are 400 in the north. Lin Ling continued to collect as he roared in his heart. This was because the harvest this time was close to 1,000 golden fleece flowers. Although it was still far from the divine weapon Great Heaven Destroyer flag, which required 100,000 golden fleece flowers, Lin Ling was only digging for the second time. Moreover, this was only a small area of golden fleece flowers. What if it was a medium area or a large area? Lin Ling, I can sense a strong willpower in that direction. There should be more golden fleece flowers. Do you want to go? At this time, the giant ghost reminded him. Lin Ling immediately told him the news. At this moment, Tian Ao and the rest seemed to have fallen into the trap of money and nodded their heads. However, Chen Ting was a woman after all. She was more meticulous and said cautiously, "It doesn't seem right to go there now." Lin Ling nodded his head in approval. This was because he felt the same way. He explained, "I think there are 100 alliances in that place. If they find out that we have such power, they will definitely capture us and control us. Although we are not afraid of them, it will be a waste of time. Therefore, it is better for us to go to a small area for now. When we are stronger, we will look for a medium area or a large area." That's right. We have to take it one bite at a time. Anyway, we are growing faster than them. That is enough. Chapter 3892. Bye. Let's go. After Lin Ling exchanged for the Divine Heaven boots, he distributed them to everyone, greatly increasing their speed. As for Lin Ling, after obtaining this divine weapon, his speed had reached 2,000 world speed. His strength had increased by half. No wonder so many people went crazy over the God's store. Increasing one's strength was as easy as drinking water. Year 572, 456. Lin Ling and the others also specially looked for places where there were no people and dug up small areas of golden fleece flower. Then they used the jade plates on their bodies to buy. Along the way, it wasn't that no one saw Lin Ling and the others. However, when they saw that Lin Ling and the others weren't fighting with the tree demon, but were still laughing happily, their gazes immediately turned mocking. Those people must be crazy. It's very normal. Seeing a treasure right in front of your eyes, but not being able to get it. The stimulation is definitely not small. Poor guys, they're all martial progenitors, but there are only 2 half-step martial gods. With such weak strength, I'm afraid they won't even be able to touch the hair of the golden fleece flower. Maybe they'll be able to dig up a radish. Let's go, don't waste time on these ants. Let's go to the east, there's a wild grape there. As long as our alliance goes all out, we'll get a golden fleece flower. Those people laughed mischievously and swaggered over. They even shouted the last sentence very loudly. A golden fleece flower is mine. In their eyes, Lin Ling's group couldn't even touch a single hair of the fleece flower, so they wanted to make Lin Ling's group jealous. However, Lin Ling and the others didn't care about those people at all. After those people left, they laughed even louder. A single tree? They didn't like it at all. Even Lin Ling ate the golden fleece flower to test the taste. Even little Kunlun had eaten quite a lot. Right now, without over 100 golden fleece flower, Lin Ling and the others wouldn't even look at them. They're gone. Dig. Following that, Lin Ling and the others laughed heartily. As for the Shop of God, some of the alliances that came earlier than Lin Ling had finally gathered enough golden fleece flower and went to exchange them for their own treasures. I've long had my eyes on that 4th grade innate divine weapon, the Heaven Divining Shield. But I've finally collected enough golden fleece flower. I also have a Heaven Extermination painted halberd that I've been preparing for 3 months. This innate divine weapon can unleash 90% of the ancestral power, and it's the ancestral power of the killing element. It's very suitable for me. Those people looked at the jade plates in their hands excitedly and then chose to exchange. However, they soon realized that something was wrong. What? Nothing else? Who could be so fast? Heavens! Even my heavenly extermination painted halberd has been exchanged. Those people stared blankly at the jade tokens in their hands. They were so angry that they smashed the jade tokens to the ground. This was because although there were many divine weapons, they had to be suitable for their own use. As for the expensive ones, they could not afford them. It was not easy to find a divine weapon with the highest cost-performance ratio, but it had been snatched away by someone else. My water and fire poisonous dragon drill. Who bought it? Come out. I promise I won't kill you. Brother, your treasure has been snatched away too? Yeah, I don't know who went crazy during this period, crazily snatching divine weapons. Damn it. This kind of thing also happened in other places of the ancient dragon wasteland. Moreover, they all agreed that it was a newcomer alliance that bought it. After all, the experts of the 100 Great Alliance mostly stored golden fleece flower and used it to buy later treasures. After all, although divine weapons were powerful, they were still external objects. Having one or two of them was enough. They could not be compared to rare treasures and divine weapons. So they were curious which newcomer alliance was so rich that they were overflowing with oil. And the people who bought these treasures were Lin Ling and the others, because they had to be armed to the teeth and dig out more golden fleece flower. Increasing their strength was inevitable. They even began to complain that there were not enough people and almost used golden fleece flower to invite people. After all, Lin Ling would only dare to dig out large areas of golden fleece flower land when the alliance had more people and become stronger. Haha, a 4th grade innate divine weapon. This flying glaive is a perfect match for me. Wu Jiang bought a powerful glaive, and his spirits were lifted. The others also bought the divine weapons they needed and felt a lot stronger in an instant. Even Lin Ling spent 10,000 golden fleece flower to buy a blue armor. It was a 5th grade innate divine weapon, the Azure Divine Armor. It had a strong defense and could reduce the attack of a half-step martial god by 50%. It could even stimulate all its potential and could block 3 full-strength attacks of an early-stage martial god. Its power was comparable to Wu Zhang's armor. Moreover, Lin Ling also studied the armor and was confident that he could forge it, but he would need the corresponding treasures. Apart from these 2 items, Lin Ling did not buy anything else as he needed to save money to buy the best treasures in the divine weapons category. Of course, he also reminded Tianao and the others that although the divine weapons were convenient, they were just worldly possessions. The real treasures were the rare treasures and divine weapons. Tianao and the others nodded in agreement. The divine weapons were indeed powerful. However, if their strength increased, the effects of the divine weapons would weaken and they would become completely useless. On the other hand, the rare treasures and divine weapons would be useful for the rest of their lives. We have dug out most of the golden fleece flower in the remote area. Next, we should go to the crowded area. Next, Lin Ling had a new plan. After all, digging up a small area of golden fleece flower, only 1 or 2,000 at a time, was too slow. In addition, it wouldn't be long before more and more people arrived here, so he had to seize the time. All right, let's go to the crowded area. Chen Ting and the others had bought treasures, and their confidence was greatly boosted. Let's go this way. Just like the giant ghost, he had also bought something that he liked, so he was in high spirits. Lin Ling was speechless because the item that the giant ghost had bought was just an incense burner. It did not have any attack power and could only be used to burn incense. It was extremely strange. However, as long as the giant ghost was happy. Under the giant ghost's guidance, Lin Ling and the others rushed to the new area. There, the poisonous fog was hazy and the poisonous fog had a paralyzing effect. Unfortunately, Lin Ling and the others had bought defensive divine weapons and did not care about it all. I remember when we first entered the ancient dragon wasteland, we could only take a detour in the face of this poisonous fog. Now, we are not afraid at all. Chun Wu suddenly exclaimed. Yes, everyone immediately looked at Lin Ling because they did not expect this day to come. After all, they had seen others work so hard and only get 1 golden fleece flower. However, they had found hundreds of them in a day. The difference was huge, and all of this was brought about by Lin Ling. Therefore, they were not jealous of Lin Ling for taking the biggest share. Instead, they were grateful to Lin Ling. Everyone work harder. The wild lotus is about to die. At this time, an excited voice came from the swamp in front. All right. Chapter 3893. Humiliating. This caused the eyes of Lin Ling and the rest to light up. Looks like there was someone harvesting the golden fleece flower up ahead. At this moment, the giant ghost's voice stopped, pointing a spot not far ahead. Go! Lin Ling and the others didn't stop either. They immediately jumped down and stopped on top of the hill. Below the hill was a swamp, and a large number of experts were attacking a huge lotus flower. That lotus flower was also in a mess and was about to explode at any time. These people had treasures that could avoid the paralysis. They must be the Du Puyi, compared to Lin Ling and the others' divine artifacts to avoid the poison fog. This was definitely much worse. Lin Ling and the others were not in a hurry. They smiled and looked at the group of people. Leader, someone's here. The number of people in the swamp was not small. There were more than 100 of them, and many of them were experts. Of course, these experts were nothing to Lin Ling. Even before he exchanged for the treasures, he was not afraid of them, let alone now. You want to snatch the treasure? Hee, there are only a few of us. I don't think they would dare. When Lin Ling and the others smiled, the person from the Alliance was first shocked. Then he said with disdain. They clearly didn't fear Lin Ling and the others at all. They were even waiting for Lin Ling and the others to snatch the kill so that they could deal the fatal blow. Therefore, they slowly killed the desolate lotus flower. However, even after they slowly tortured the desolate lotus flower to death and even obtained the golden fleece flower, the group of people still remained indifferent. The leader even waved the golden fleece flower in his hand in an attempt to entice the group of people and make them act foolishly. Unfortunately, it was to no avail. On the contrary, the group of people were chatting and laughing, and their eyes more or less revealed a trace of disdain. Leader, what are they doing? Finally, someone couldn't help but ask the leader. In truth, the leader was frowning as well, and his face was filled with suspicion. We are from the Black Wind Alliance. What alliance are you from? What were they doing here? The doubts in his heart grew stronger and stronger as the leader opened his mouth to ask. We're from the Godslayer Alliance. Don't worry, we won't steal the golden fleece flower from you. We're only here to try our luck. Lin Ling smiled and said calmly when he saw the puzzled faces of the people in the swamp. Naturally, they didn't come here to try their luck. Instead, it was because there was a considerable amount of golden fleece flower in the swamp, and Lin Ling came here for that. However, Lin Ling also wanted to wait for this group of people to leave before digging. Although Lin Ling was not afraid of this group of people, it would be best if he did not cause any trouble. Right now, his main priority was to get rich. Try my luck. Hearing Lin Ling's words, the leader couldn't help but sneer. These 5 people must be stupid. How could the golden fleece flower be obtained by luck? So it's a bunch of idiots. Let's go. The others also cast disdainful gazes over. They were too lazy to waste any more time here. Leader, something's wrong. But at this time, a skinny young man pulled the leader and revealed an unfathomable look, which made the leader frown and immediately looked at him suspiciously. Although the strength of this young man in front of him was not very good, but he was quite clever and had made many unexpected discoveries. First, I've never heard of the Godslayer Alliance. This means that they're not from the 100 Men Alliance. However, they're too calm. They didn't panic at all when they met the 100 Men Alliance. Second, try your luck? It's more like cheating a child. They've been waiting on the hill for so long. I'm afraid they have other plans. Perhaps they found some treasure here. The skinny young man said seriously. He looked at Lin Ling and the others with an expression that said, I've seen through you. Hearing you say that, something is indeed wrong. Damn, I was almost fooled. The leader slapped his forehead as if he had suddenly realized something. At this moment, everyone's gazes also turned to Lin Ling and the others. Why are you here? The leader enunciated each and every word clearly. On the hill, Lin Ling and the others saw that the group was about to leave. However, they suddenly turned around and walked back. This made them unhappy. What we do is none of your business. Let's mind our own business. Lin Ling smiled and said politely, as usual, Look at you. You seem to be waiting for something." At this moment, the skinny young man suddenly shrugged his shoulders and said with a smirk, "Suddenly, we don't want to leave anymore." Obviously, the Black Wind Alliance deliberately went against the Godslayer Alliance. Whatever the Godslayer Alliance wanted to do, they would not allow it. Sit, sit, sit. Come, let's drink." Following that, the people of the Black Wind Alliance all sat down and began to drink and eat in a carefree manner. They even started to play drinking games. Under such circumstances, Tianao and the others were all furious. Those guys were definitely doing it on purpose. They had given them enough face and waited for the Black Wind Alliance to hunt down the wild lotus before they planned to dig it up. However, the other party did not give them any face. Leader Chen Wu and Wu Jiang immediately looked at Lin Ling, curled his lips, and walked down from the hill. Since they don't want to leave, let's beat them until they leave. Good. Tianao and the others were shocked. After exchanging for treasures, they had always wanted to test the power of divine artifacts. Now they had the chance. Tianao, don't kill all of them. Leave a few for me. Damn, I wanted to attack them before, but I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. Luo Wuchang also smiled. The divine artifact in his hand was also ready. Seeing Lin Ling and the others walk down, the people on the swamp were stunned. Then they all laughed. The other party only had 10 people. How dare they be so arrogant with such little strength? Leader, they said they want to beat us up? Someone said to the leader with a smile. Then, the people of the Black Wind Alliance laughed. The leader even stood up and said indifferently, You want to use force because you can't reason with us? Let me say this. We won't leave today. Let's see what you can do to us." There were 120 people in the Alliance, and 30 of them were at the half-step martial god realm. They would definitely win if they let half of them go. Ha ha ha. The laughter became louder and louder. The Black Wind Alliance wanted to give the Godslayer Alliance a chance to absorb them. However, they were too lazy to absorb them now. However, how could they destroy them just because they wanted to? That was obviously impossible. Lin Ling and the others walked down slowly. However, they gradually quickened their pace. Then, they started to jog, and finally, they started to run. In just a short moment, the speed of 1,000 boundaries realm erupted. Everyone had disappeared. Lin Ling and the others were not slow. In addition to the 1,000 boundaries realm speed enhanced by the innate divine artifact, their speed was close to 2,000 boundaries realm speed. Chapter 3894. Take this money to see a doctor. Bang, bang, bang. Immediately, a large number of people on the left were sent flying. Next, in the center, a large number of people were sent flying. Lin Ling and the rest speed was simply too fast. The people from the Black Wind Alliance couldn't catch up to him at all. They couldn't even sense him. For a moment, the situation was one-sided. The leader was disdainful at first, but his expression gradually turned serious. His pupils constricted. Almost 10 people had actually messed up their 100-man alliance. Boss, not good. They all bought the divine heaven boots. Suddenly, someone shouted in a panic. Everyone reacted because they were all storing golden fleece flower and were preparing to buy the treasures they wanted. Therefore, they were very familiar with the treasures of the heavenly weapon category. Among them was the divine heaven boots, which could increase the speed of 1,000 worlds. However, the price was also very expensive, requiring 100 golden fleece flower. This price was definitely not simple. This was because even if an ordinary person had 100 golden fleece flowers, they would never use them to buy the divine heaven boots. This was because it was not worth it. They might as well leave the golden fleece flowers to buy divine arts or even cheap treasures. Moreover, there are a total of 16 pairs of divine heaven boots. Now that all of them have been bought, they have taken up more than half of them. Another person roared. He was angry and furious. He was angry because these guys were too rich. They actually bought a pair each. Moreover, where did these guys get the golden fleece flower? They were angry because they couldn't catch up to the other party's speed with the divine sky boots. At this moment, they realized that speed was the key. How did this small alliance get so many golden fleece flower? The leader was so angry that he was trembling on the spot. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. At this moment, the figure was slowly walking over. The figure was wearing dazzling blue armor. When he saw the exquisite godly armor, the leader was so angry that his face turned black. If he remembered correctly, that was the azure godly armor. It needed 10,000 golden fleece flowers to buy it. 10,000? This was an astronomical figure. He even suspected that in the past 3 months, other than the 10 overlords, there was no one else in the 100 Realms Alliance who could gather such a number. You, why do you have so many golden fleece flower? The leader finally pointed at Lin Ling and roared as he was bombarded with all kinds of wealth until he found it hard to breathe. However, Lin Ling couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense and walked towards the leader step by step. When the leader saw how arrogant Lin Ling was, he immediately gathered his realm essence and unleashed it with all his might. Rumble. The half-martial god realm punch landed squarely on Lin Ling's stomach. Even a first-layer martial god would not dare to receive the punch. Therefore, the leader even thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him because he had hit the target too easily. Speaking of which, didn't this guy have divine boots? Can't speed be increased? Ha ha ha. The leader instantly thought that the brat in front of him had been too complacent, so he had easily defeated him. Done. The other members of the Black Wind Alliance were also stunned. Gradually, a smile appeared on their furious faces. Their leader won? Crash. At this moment, a terrifying storm swept out. Soon after, people saw that the young man was still standing in front of the leader. Not only was he fine after taking a direct hit, he didn't even take a step back. What the fuck? The leader was less than half a meter away from Lin Ling. His jaw dropped as he stared at the tall figure in front of him. Don't you know that this armor can weaken the half-martial God Realm's attack by 50%? Lin Ling calmly glanced at him. His defense was already outstanding, and with the help of the armor, the leader's attack was like an itch to him. I'm giving you face, yet you're shameless. Following this, Lin Ling spoke in a cold tone as he threw a punch at the leader's stomach. Puff! The leader spat out a mouthful of blood, including the food he had eaten last night. He bent over like a prawn and slowly fell to the ground. Bang, bang, bang. Lin Ling did not waste any time. He continued to punch and kick the leader on the ground until he begged for mercy. Humiliate. Lin Ling wore a cold grin. He had given them time to leave, but they insisted on humiliating him. He would not be satisfied if he did not beat them up. The leader on the ground was howling in pain. However, he lived up to his name as the leader of the 100 People Alliance. He did not beg for mercy. Instead, he glared angrily at Lin Ling. His eyes were implying that if it were not for the fact that they were wearing sacred artifacts, they would not be a match for the 100 People Alliance. Lin Ling sensed his gaze. He shook his head and said calmly, "Are you not convinced?" The leader did not speak. He continued to stare at Lin Ling. His gaze spoke volumes. It was obvious that he was furious and unwilling to accept this. However, without the sacred artifact, he could not do anything to Lin Ling. Thus, he could only suppress his anger. Very good. I like this kind of gaze of yours the most. It's filled with unwillingness and helplessness. Lin Ling also smiled. His words angered the leader so much that his body trembled. Arrogant, too arrogant. One had to know that he was one of the top 10 experts in the 36 academies. He was also famous in the divine ranking Stairway Heaven and Shun San Hall's strongest circle. Because of this, he could lead the Black Wind Alliance to roam the ancient dragon wasteland without being betrayed. However, he was now being trampled on by a small alliance of 10 people. This humiliation was too great. Bang, bang, bang. Unfortunately, Lin Ling did not care about his anger and grievance. He continued to trample on him and beat him up. Tianao and the rest laughed and beat up the people of the Black Wind Alliance in a frenzy. After a long time, Lin Ling looked down at the leader on the ground. A bag appeared in his hand. He slowly took out the royal crystals and threw them one by one at the leader's face. Take this money to see a doctor. Scram. Humiliation. This was a direct insult to one's self-esteem. After being hit in the face by the royal crystals and hearing Lin Ling's words, the leader was so angry that his teeth were chattering. Take it to see a doctor. Was he pitying him? Let's go. The leader finally roared. With a trembling heart, he supported his heavily injured body and turned to leave. The members of the Black Wind Alliance didn't dare to say anything. They stroked their chests and left dejectedly. They didn't expect that this matter could have been resolved. They were the ones who looked for trouble and refused to leave. That was why they were humiliated. What kind of alliance is this? It's too strong. We have defeated many alliances, including the Tiantai Alliance, the Ninth God Alliance, and escaped from the 100 Great Alliance many times. But those alliances are not as terrifying as this one. Yes, it seems that we are stupid. We all want to save up golden fleece flowers to buy precious treasures, but we forgot that we have to eat one bite at a time. Sometimes it's not good to look too far ahead. Yes, we should learn from them and buy cheap treasures. The main thing is to increase our strength. This way, we can collect golden fleece flowers faster. Yes. Chapter 3895. Intimidating. Wait. But at this moment, a cold voice suddenly rang out, causing all of the Black Wind Alliance to stop. You said the Ninth God's Eye? The one who spoke was Lin Ling. The leader suddenly clenched his teeth. This God Slayer Alliance was too much. They actually wanted to humiliate them. Where's the Ninth God's Eye? However, Lin Ling spoke again. However, as the saying goes, a warrior prefers death to humiliation. Therefore, the Black Wind Alliance remained silent. The leader looked at Lin Ling furiously without saying a word. Kill us if you have the ability. Otherwise, don't think we'll listen to you. This caused Lin Ling's eyes to turn even colder. The Ninth God's Eye. This was a senior that Lin Ling knew in the Yin province. Lin Ling had also helped him in the Starry Sky Forest. He was also one of the 6 great God Eyes. He didn't expect that the Ninth God's Eye would appear here. Lin Ling had always treated this senior as a good friend. Now that he knew that the Black Wind Alliance was going to teach him a lesson, how could Lin Ling not be anxious? Not going to say it? Lin Ling's eyes turned cold. He knew that the Black Wind Alliance seemed to want to waste time with him. Therefore, he wanted to see who would be the one to waste more time and be more ruthless than Lin Ling. Next, Lin Ling walked forward step by step. When the leader saw this, he sneered without the slightest fear. If Lin Ling had the ability, then kill him. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to lower his head. Seeing how arrogant the leader was, everyone also puffed out their chests without any fear. Lin Ling walked forward step by step. However, he didn't walk toward the leader. Instead, he stopped in front of Skinny Youth and looked down at him. This youth was the mischievous fellow from before. Now that he was being stared at by Lin Ling, he immediately glared back, unwilling to be outdone. No matter what, he was still a genius of the academy. If he were to lose, he could accept it, but if he were to lower his head, it was absolutely impossible. However, Lin Ling just looked at him like this. His eyes were like an ancient well without ripples, as if he had seen countless storms and waves. This made the youth feel that his showing off was simply the stubbornness of a child in front of Lin Ling. Of course, this was what the thin and weak young man was thinking. The other members of the Black Wind Alliance were laughing and praising the young man's backbone. Not bad. He didn't weaken the Black Wind Alliance's prestige. They were all geniuses and experts. It was possible to defeat them, but to make them submit was very, very difficult. The leader's lips curled into a confident smile. However, Lin Ling still didn't say anything. Instead, he stretched out his hand and slapped him. Pah! The sound of the slap was crisp and clear, but the skinny young man still stubbornly stared at Lin Ling. His gaze was fearless. Pah! Lin Ling didn't say much and slapped him again. That slap was not powerful, nor was it fast. It only produced a crisp sound. Pa pa pa. Time passed quietly just like that. What was shocking was that Lin Ling was still slapping the young man's face. He didn't say anything, nor did he kill the other party. In the beginning, the members of the Black Wind Alliance were full of arrogance, but gradually, that spirit was restrained. When they looked at the young man again, blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth, and his cheeks were swollen. He was still looking up at Lin Ling. However, his gaze had lost its sharpness. There was a feeling of not daring to look at Lin Ling. The main thing was that the person in front of them was too quiet. Seeing that they didn't submit, he didn't get angry at all. He just kept slapping their faces as if he was doing the most ordinary thing. Indeed, Lin Ling was very calm. This calmness made the members of the Black Wind Alliance panic. There was a very true saying, the more unfathomable an enemy was, the more terrifying it was. Right now, they couldn't see through Lin Ling, and they didn't know what Lin Ling was going to do next. Tianao and the others were standing behind Lin Ling. They were also silent, but they could feel a strange atmosphere. That was power. No matter how arrogant and unyielding these people were, under Lin Ling's silent actions, their arrogance quietly collapsed. Compared to the Black Wind Alliance, Lin Ling was like a true god of martial arts who had experienced great storms and waves. What's the matter with the ninth god eye? At this moment, the leader couldn't help but ask the person next to him when he saw his underling being slapped. The ninth god eye is an old monster in the Yin state. He formed an alliance with a dozen old monsters. Last time, we stole the golden fleece flower, and we also took care of it. Seeing that their alliance was old, we didn't take them in, but drove them away. Someone immediately replied, "Do you know their whereabouts?" The leader asked anxiously. "This, I don't know," the person hurriedly replied. After getting all the information, the leader couldn't help but look at Lin Ling and say, "Sir, the ninth god has had some friction with us, but we didn't kill them. They're still alive." It was clear that he had been frightened by Lin Ling's strange actions and had completely surrendered. Slap, slap, slap. But Lin Ling said nothing. He continued to slap the youth's face as if he was killing a chicken to warn the monkeys. The voice was crisp and clear, but it was also heavy, like thunder in everyone's hearts. On the other hand, the leader cursed furiously in his heart when he saw this. Looks like that blue-robed young man is slightly younger than me. But isn't he a little too mature? Who knows where the ninth god eye is? He immediately said to the people of the Black Wind Alliance. At this moment, all the arrogance in his heart had disappeared. He knew that if he continued to be arrogant, the blue-robed youth would continue to slap him until the end of time. Madman, this was another evaluation he had of the blue-robed youth. "Boss, I think I saw them at the seismic mountain range," someone said as he wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Hearing that, the leader quickly shouted, "At the seismic mountain range." After saying that, he was afraid that Lin Ling didn't know the place, so he pointed to the distance and said, "In that direction, it's only half a day's walk. You have the divine boots, so you can reach there in 6 hours." After saying that, he looked at Lin Ling anxiously. However, Lin Ling was still slapping the skinny youth's face. He was extremely majestic. However, he finally stopped. The skinny youth had already been slapped until he looked like a little fatty. It could be said that he had slapped his face until it was swollen to look fat. Seeing that Lin Ling had stopped, everyone let out a sigh of relief. The heavy burden in their hearts had finally been lifted. When they came to their senses, they realized that they were all sweating profusely. They had never expected that their stubbornness and arrogance would crumble under Lin Ling's actions. "Let's go." Lin Ling ignored them and led Tianao and the others to the seismic mountain range. Because Lin Ling wanted to know whether the ninth god I was dead or alive. If they were late and the ninth god I met with misfortune, Lin Ling would regret it. They're finally gone. Chapter 3896. The whereabouts of the ninth god's eye. That pressure was formless and colorless, but it was as powerful as a martial god's aura. On the other hand, even if a martial god didn't kill them, just looking at them was enough to make them feel a huge amount of pressure. He looked so young, but I didn't expect him to be so powerful. He subdued us without a fight. Our strength is just child's play in his eyes. The leader sighed, and the bitter smile on his face deepened. He still had not digested the terror brought by the young man. At this moment, Lin Ling was heading toward the seismic mountain range. Lin Ling decided not to dig up the golden fleece flower for the time being because he suddenly realized that it would take too long to harvest the golden fleece flower with the current manpower. If the previous incident were to happen again, it would take a lot more time. Therefore, Lin Ling decided to recruit more people. The ninth gods, I was one of them. Lin Ling told Tian Ao and the others about his idea, and they immediately nodded. Chun Ting and Chun Wu said, "We know some experts. If we use the golden fleece flowers as a reward, they will join our alliance." "Can we rely on them?" Lin Ling asked. "Their temperaments are not bad. We can rely on them." Chun Ting and Chun Wu nodded. They knew that the Black Wind Alliance was just a small alliance. If they encountered the 100 World Alliance, they would not be a match for them. Even if they could win, the Godslayer Alliance would waste a lot of time. Therefore, it was indeed an urgent matter to recruit people. The seismic mountain range. This was one of the miraculous places in the ancient Dragon Wasteland. Its gravity was extremely terrifying and had the weight of 1,000 worlds. This meant that when they walked into the mountain range, they would have to bear the weight of 1,000 worlds. The mountain range that Lin Ling was heading toward only had the weight of 2,000 worlds. Therefore, they could barely withstand it. It was said that there were even more terrifying mountains with the weight of 10,000 worlds. That was where it was truly difficult to move. Not long after, Lin Ling separated from Chun Ting and the others. He rushed into the seismic mountain range alone, while Chun Ting and the others went to look for their friends. At this moment, at a corner of the mountain range, a battle was still going on. More than 10 experts were attacking a desolate tree, and many of them were injured. Luckily, they were half-martial God Realm experts. Thus, they did not inflict any fatal injuries to Qin Nan. On the contrary, the desolate tree began to sway under the attacks of the crowd. I'm old. I can't compare to those young people," someone said with a sigh, because if these old monsters were placed in the 9 provinces, every one of them would be an indomitable existence. However, in the ancient Dragon Desolate Land, experts were as common as clouds. Many of the rising stars were not weaker than them. They could only watch helplessly. Now, they had only obtained a total of 20 golden fleece flowers, but it had taken them a lot of time. Moreover, in the process of collecting the golden fleece flower, they had to be on guard against others snatching their spoils of war. Some alliances were extremely cunning. They did not devour them, nor did they destroy them. Instead, they let them fight to the death, and then reap the benefits. In that case, he wouldn't even have to pay him. And right now, there was an alliance called Purple Wolf eyeing them covetously. This alliance had 200 people and 3 leaders. They were all half-step martial gods, but they all possessed 8th grade ultimate desolate bodies. And in the alliance, there were 80 half-step martial gods. They could not be underestimated. Those old bastards are about to succeed. Let's prepare to attack. However, they are really useless trash. Working together to kill a desolate tree, they actually took so long. Sigh. The leaders stared ahead and said indifferently. At this moment, a rumble finally came from ahead. The huge desolate tree finally collapsed. An array of golden light bloomed. This caused the eyes of all the members of the Violet Wolf Alliance to light up. They were just about to attack when the ground suddenly started to rumble. After that, an enormous toad crawled out from the ground. This toad was like a mountain, and its mouth was 100 meters wide. At the instant it appeared, the entire mountain range started to shake. "Oh no, it's the devil toad." Sigh. The expressions of the Purple Wolf Alliance members changed drastically. None of them dared to attack, because they knew that the devil toad was not a demon, but a plant. No, it should be said that it was a combination of a plant and a demon. However, the devil toad was extremely terrifying. Its strength was estimated to be in the 3rd level of the martial god realm. It was much stronger than an ordinary desolate tree. Generally speaking, other than the 100 Alliance, which had absolute numbers and strength, the other alliances were not qualified to fight against it. They might even be wiped out. Moreover, the Purple Wolf Alliance already knew that powerful alliances like the Xingyun Alliance and the E Alliance had been devoured by the Devil Toad. Those alliances were half a step into the 100 Alliance. They had more than 500 experts, but they were all useless. Let's go. Let's go. Fortunately, those old bastards are attracting the Devil Toad's attention. Otherwise, we would all be wiped out. Let's go. Boss, don't you want that golden fleece flower? Idiot. Idiot. Life is more important. Of course, if those old geezers can snatch the golden fleece flower from the mouth of the devil Xianxia, then we'll snatch it from outside. But if they all die here, hee, then we don't want that golden fleece flower. Let's go. The members of the Purple Wolf Alliance retreated. As for the old monsters, their faces all turned pale. Obviously, they recognized the terrifying existence before them. They immediately laughed bitterly. The gravity of the seismic mountain range was already terrifying. They had used up all their strength to kill that desolate tree. Now, an even more terrifying existence had appeared. They did not even have the strength to escape, let alone kill the Devil Toad. I didn't expect that we would all die here. One of the old men shook his head regretfully. He was the ninth god eye. Ninth old bastard. Although we are all going to die here, it is my honor to know you. Another old man said. These people did not know each other. They had met on the way and formed an alliance. However, after being in the alliance for a long time, they had become like-minded, so their relationship became better and better. Sigh. The ninth god eye sighed. Clearly, he was still unwilling to accept this. Croak. At this moment, the giant devil toad finally opened its mouth and tried to swallow them. Everyone's faces turned ashen. However, in the blink of an eye, a figure shot over from afar like a cannonball. It passed through the crowd and shot into the devil ghost toad's mouth. The devil ghost toad felt that it was delicious and actually closed its mouth, stirring it up and down. The ninth god eye and the others were all dumbfounded. The members of the Purple Wolf Alliance in the distance also stopped in their tracks. They were all confused. Previously, someone seemed to have rushed out of the toad's mouth. Was there such a stupid person in the world? Dual sword style. However, at this moment, a low voice suddenly sounded. Moreover, this voice came from the devil toad's mouth. Chapter 3897. Join the God-slaying alliance. The gigantic devil toad trembled. Then its entire body was torn apart. Countless pieces of flesh and blood splattered in all directions like rain. Amidst the stinking flesh and blood, a monster-like figure holding two swords walked out step by step. Everyone was stunned. A third-level martial god like Desolate Tree had been killed in a single blow. Thump, thump. Everyone's hearts violently pounded, unable to believe what had just happened. Your Excellency, you're amazing. The ninth god, I, and the others also spoke. After all, this person had saved them. Old Brother Ninth, after not seeing you for so long, have you forgotten about me? But at this moment, the monster slowly walked out and put away the two swords in his hands. His aura quietly receded, and he gradually took the appearance of a young man. His right hand sucked behind him, and a golden fleece flower on the ground flew over. The young man grabbed it and immediately threw it to the ninth god eye. However, the ninth god eye ignored the golden fleece flower. Instead, he looked in disbelief at the newcomer. It's you, Lin Ling? This must be fake. How could I, Lin Ling, be fake? Seeing this, Lin Ling faintly smiled and walked forward. The ninth god eye fiercely rubbed his eyes, still in disbelief. This was because last time in the Starry Sky Forest, Lin Ling was like a junior to him. But in these last few years, Lin Ling had already grown to this level. One blow had killed a third-level martial god like Desolate Tree. Heavens, this little monster! He couldn't help but sigh, thinking back to the Yin province's arena. At that time, Lin Ling had accidentally saved him, so he felt somewhat grateful to this junior Lin Ling for helping him many times. But he hadn't expected that in the end, Lin Ling would actually help him. Old Ghost Ninth, you know him? Too amazing. He doesn't seem very old, and his cultivation isn't very high, but his fighting power is heaven-defying. As expected of the Changjiang River, each new generation surpasses the previous. The old ghost behind the ninth god, I all sighed. I also didn't know that he would grow so quickly. The ninth god, I helplessly shook his head and looked at the golden fleece flower in his hand. But at this moment, Lin Ling smiled and explained why he had come. As they listened, the ninth god eyes group frowned, and in the end they asked, "Join you?" "That's right. If you join us, the golden fleece flower will come faster. You won't have to risk your lives to fight the desolate tree." "I see." The ninth god, I couldn't help but look at his old companions, who immediately smiled. "If you say join, we'll join." They had seen Lin Ling's strength before, and it could be said to be heaven-defying. With such a leader, they were convinced. Moreover, Lin Ling had saved their lives before. "All right, then I will also risk my life to accompany you." Seeing that his old friend had agreed, the ninth god, I nodded, and then he bitterly smiled. "I didn't think that in this lifetime, these old bones of mine would have to call you chief. The affairs of the world are unpredictable." "Haha, if you want to be the leader, I'll let you be." Lin Ling heartily laughed. Don't. If I'm the leader, these old fellows won't accept me. You should be the leader." The ninth god, I waved his hand. Lin Ling chatted with him for a while, and then he looked into the distance and indifferently said, "Everyone, you've been watching for so long. Aren't you tired?" With these words, the members of the Purple Wolf Alliance hidden in the distance walked out, their numbers vast and imposing. "Sir, your strength is truly incredible. However, I wonder if you have any complaints about us?" One of the leaders of the Purple Wolf Alliance indifferently said. He was filled with fear of Lin Ling, because the latter had been able to kill a martial god. His strength was unfathomable. How could he know that Lin Ling had already fused his talents and activated the tyrannical Song Sword and the Direct Inheritance Nether Sword to the peak? Especially the Direct Inheritance Nether General, a wisp of divine power rippled. He had relied on this sword to kill the demonic Baron Toad. Lin Ling cut to the chase as he stared at the Purple Wolf Alliance, who looked as if they were about to face a great enemy. "It's nothing. It's just that I don't like it when others take advantage of others. So, you have a hand over all the golden fleece flower. Otherwise, I don't mind annihilating you." Arrogant. The Purple Wolf Alliance had many people, but Lin Ling had threatened to annihilate them. This time, the members of the Purple Wolf Alliance had ugly expressions. However, they had to admit that this young man was indeed very strong. "I believe you can do it alone, but can you guarantee that the old fogey behind you won't die?" At this time, another more cunning leader sneered. Hearing this, Lin Ling didn't say anything. A jade token appeared in his hand, and he began to buy. Divine boots, divine armor, divine weapons. Then, the light of treasures soared into the sky. A large pile of treasures was thrown on the ground by him, emitting dense divine power. Innate divine weapons? This also shocked the members of the Purple Wolf Alliance, and their eyes turned red. That guy actually had so many golden fleece flower? One had to know that this pile of treasures was absolutely impossible to buy without 2,000 golden fleece flower. "Brother Digio, these divine weapons all belong to you." Ignoring their shock, Lin Ling looked at the ninth god, and said, the number of golden fleece flower he had now reached tens of thousands. He didn't care about this little bit of money. Moreover, only with effort could there be gains. He understood this principle. "Leader, this is so embarrassing." The ninth god, I didn't say anything, but the old monsters behind him all gasped. They actually wanted those innate divine weapons, but they were embarrassed. This made them look a little funny. "The leader gave it to us. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Take it." However, the ninth god, I had been with Lin Ling for a long time and knew Lin Ling's personality. He immediately laughed loudly, picked up the divine weapons on the ground, and put them on. He poured his realm essence into them, and his strength instantly increased. Now that they had a divine artifact, they were no longer people who could be trampled on. Sensing the great increase in strength of the ninth god, I and the others, Lin Ling also looked at the Purple Wolf Alliance. The three leaders of the Purple Wolf Alliance had ugly expressions. Those old bastards could be said to be armed to the teeth now. In addition, There was that fierce young man. How are they going to fight now? Aggrieved. Hand over all the golden fleece flower, roared one of the leaders. After speaking, he took out his golden fleece flower and threw them all on the ground. Let's go. Then he was the first to leave, but from his appearance, it was clear that he was so angry that he was cursing the heavens and earth. The others were the same. They vomited blood as they handed over their precious golden fleece flower and then angrily left. More than 100 golden fleece flower had appeared on the ground. This harvest was clearly not enough to catch Lin Ling's eye, but made the ninth god Ai and the others incredibly excited. They were rich. Brother Digio, follow me, and there will be plenty of opportunities for you to get rich. Chapter 3898. Crazy Growth. 2 hours later, all of them stopped at an ancient hill. Lin Ling gazed into the distance. It wasn't long before Chun Ting and the others returned, and they brought quite a few people with them. Chun Ting and the others were all experts in the strongest circle. They had been training outside for many years, so they naturally knew some experts. At this moment, they were pulling all these experts into the God-slaying alliance. These people were all gathered at the foot of the hill. Then, they looked at Lin Ling with puzzlement in their eyes. This was the leader of the God-Slayer alliance? Were they all going to listen to Lin Ling now? Clearly, they were somewhat resistant to this. After all, if Chun Ting and the others were the leaders, they would still be somewhat convinced. But Lin Ling? This was a new face. Not only had they never seen him in the strongest circle, they had never even heard of him. Lin Ling had also guessed what they were thinking. He did not say much, and directly used the jade token to purchase the treasures, and then scattered them all over the ground. Holy shit, 9 heavens bound. Divine Astral Sword. That's the Divine Astral Sword. Everyone stared at the divine artifacts on ground. Even their breathing stopped. Some of them even had greedy looks in their eyes. If it weren't for Chun Ting and the others, they would have snatched the treasures and run away. Seeing their appearance, Lin Ling immediately laughed disdainfully. Look at you guys. You're moved by this little bit of treasure? He's really someone who can achieve great things. This sentence was a direct reprimand. However, no one dared to retort because they could see that Lin Ling's reprimand was not an act. It was truly a magnanimity that was not pleasing to his eyes. Moreover, even if it was an act, as long as they were given these god tools, so what if they were scolded a little? Let me tell you, if you follow me, you might be able to buy as much as 70% of the divine weapons. Lin Ling continued. Furthermore, you guys can buy divine and mystical treasures faster than others. How about it? Do you want to join us? Join! Everyone roared. Unless they were idiots, there was no reason for them not to join. These deafening noises caused Lin Ling to smile faintly. The God-Slayer Alliance had started to expand, and their numbers had reached over 100. To these people, Lin Ling did not intend to make them loyal and devoted. They only had a relationship of mutual benefit, and that was enough. Set off. Next, Lin Ling began to crazily harvest the golden fleece flower. This was because his goal was different from these people. His goal was the number 1 and number 2 treasures in the divine weapon category. In total, it was probably more than 1 million golden fleece flower. This was also the reason why Lin Ling needed to strengthen the God-Slayer Alliance. Over here, 562. Over here, 733. 800. With the protection of a large number of experts, Lin Ling's digging speed became much faster. In fact, they were even brazenly digging. Sir, this is the God-Slayer Alliance's territory. We've reserved the entire place. Every time they went to a new place, the 100 experts of the God-Slayer Alliance would explode with powerful strength, intimidating the other alliances, and then dominate that place. Unknowingly, most of the treasures in the divine weapon category shops were bought by the God-Slayer Alliance. God damn it, who is so excessive to buy more than half of the divine weapons? The rest are all expensive items. How are we going to buy them? In the various alliances, there were countless complaints, but they did not know who had snatched those treasures. As time passed, the God-Slayer Alliance gradually became famous in the ancient dragon wasteland. It could be said that they were half a step into the 100 Great Alliances. TSK, 500,000 Golden Fleece Flower. Lin Ling, on the other hand, was getting more and more excited as he looked at his harvest. Currently, he was also full of treasures. His attack, defense, and speed had all increased greatly. Next, he only needed to buy the first and second treasures in the Divine Weapon category. Then, he could enter the Divine Weapon category. As for the Divine Weapon category, Lin Ling was not interested. His goal was the Divine Weapon category, especially the Fruit of Fortune and the Fruit of Immortality. He was even going to buy treasures that could help him break through to the next realm. Of course, his greatest interest was still the first Divine Legacy. He had already planned to save up and buy a Divine Legacy. However, while Lin Ling was crazily plundering, Lin Ling also knew that the 10 overlords were also crazily plundering. Because they had more people, their speed of harvesting Golden Fleece Flower was only slightly slower than Lin Ling's. Lin Ling also knew that as the God-Slayer Alliance became more and more famous, it would not be long before the 100 alliances would be eyeing them like flies. Therefore, Lin Ling had to make use of this time to harvest more Golden Fleece Flower and strengthen the God-Slayer Alliance at the same time. Here at the Poison Lake, 1,200 stalks. There are 2,779 stalks in the salt pans. After the alliance became stronger, Lin Ling also began to march toward the middle area of the Golden Fleece Flower. As for the ancient Dragon Wasteland, all kinds of news were floating out like a rolling snowball. This was because in this short month, various alliances had suddenly emerged. Among the 100 alliances, a few alliances had been replaced, and there were also new alliances that had emerged. Of course, among the new alliances, the most dazzling was the God-Slayer Alliance. The growth of this alliance could be said to be like a virus. After its development, it was simply unstoppable. Currently, it had completely entered the eyes of the 100 alliances. However, what surprised them was that the God-Slayer Alliance had a large number of members. It had already developed into a 1,000-member alliance. Moreover, there were also many leaders. There were more than 50 of them, and each of them was very powerful. Moreover, they did not kill, steal, but they dominated the territory. This was very suspicious. God-Slayer Alliance sounds familiar. I think I've heard of it in the 9 prefectures. That's right. It has indeed appeared in the 9 prefectures. However, I reckon that the God-Slayer Alliance in the 9 prefectures is not the same as the God-Slayer Alliance here. After all, the strongest members in the God-Slayer Alliance in the 9 prefectures are only 4 or 5. They are completely incomparable to the God-Slayer Alliance here. It seems like they have the same name. However, there are more than 50 leaders. TSK, they could be considered as the 100 alliances. According to the rumors, there is actually a leader behind the scenes in the God-Slayer Alliance. However, no one knows who it is. This is because when there is trouble, it is always the 50 leaders who take action. Their strength is already outstanding among the half-step martial gods. I heard that there are also many martial gods among them. The hunter will shoot the bird that sticks out. It's time to attack the God-Slayer Alliance. Our alliance will become even more powerful after devouring them. Voices rang out in the ancient Dragon Wasteland. The small alliances were afraid of the God-Slayer Alliance, but the 100 alliances were eyeing the God-Slayer Alliance covetously. Of course, the news had also spread to the 10 overlords. God-Slayer Alliance? Could it be Lin Ling's alliance? Many people were puzzled about the Heaven Alliance formed by the Duan family and the New Heavenly Court. Chapter 3899. The Domineering God-Slayer Alliance. How could a mere Lin Ling create such a huge alliance? It's just a matter of having the same name. Think about it. Young Demon Lord and the others have worked hard for so many years, but the God-Slayer Alliance is still as weak as a dog. Therefore, a mere Lin Ling alone doesn't have such strength. In the Sky Alliance, Duan Wuhan said confidently. The crowd analyzed the situation and nodded in agreement. It was indeed impossible. Lin Ling was not even a half-step martial god. How could he gather so many people? They were obviously overthinking. Don't worry. This God-Slayer alliance will soon be swallowed up. Many people in the 100 alliances are eyeing them covetously. Duan Wuhan said again. The pitiful God-Slayer alliance. They've just made a name for themselves, but now they're just going to benefit others. Many people in the Sky Alliance agreed with this. They were not blindly confident in their guess. It was because the Heavenly Alliance was so powerful that they had occupied 60% of the barren trees on the land. That was how they had grown to their current state. On the other hand, the God-Slayer Alliance only had 1,000 people. At most, they would be given 10 to 20,000 golden fleece flowers. Perhaps this was still too much. It was a pity that they didn't know that Lin Ling had already reached 1 million golden fleece flower, and he had exchanged them for the 2 most powerful treasures in the divine weapon category. With this exchange, the entire ancient dragon wasteland was shocked. Everyone was guessing who was so rich and overbearing. After all, even though the 2 treasures could kill martial gods, they were one-time use treasures. Since he had the golden fleece flower, why didn't he exchange them for more practical treasures? For example, a talent exchange or a treasure that could increase one's talent. No one could figure it out. Moreover, they began to imagine who had bought those treasures. However, most of them believed that only the 10 overlords had such wealth. However, no one expected it to be Lin Ling. We've returned to the time before liberation in one night. Moreover, the day of the opening of the ancient dragon wasteland is getting closer and closer. Once it opens, no one can guarantee how many people will enter. Will it be 500,000 or 1 million? After Lin Ling exchanged the treasures, he was overjoyed, but he also knew that time waits for no one, because he still had a lot of things to exchange for. Therefore, he was also racing against time, trying his best to seize the treasures. When the time came, he would be able to shock the world with a single brilliant feat. Lin Ling, over here. The giant ghost continued to point out directions. At the moment, Lin Ling was no longer interested in the small areas of the golden fleece flower. His ambition had already fallen to the middle area, or even the larger area. Moreover, during this period of time, the God-Slayer Alliance had already reached a membership of 2,000. Most importantly, each of them had a god weapon with them. They were extremely awesome. They were absolutely confident that they could fight against the Great 100 Alliance. A long time later, under the giant ghost's guidance, the 2,000 experts appeared in a desert. There were also many small alliances in the desert. However, when they saw the God-Slaying Alliance, their expressions changed, and they immediately retreated. Of course, there were a few alliances that didn't want to retreat. They were the Cannon God Alliance and the Lone Star Alliance. The leaders of these alliances were the real experts on the divine ladder. Their alliances were half a step into the 100 great alliances. However, when these alliances came face to face with the God-Slaying Alliance, the Cannon God Alliance, and the other powerful alliances immediately retreated. This was because in their eyes, the God-Slaying Alliance was well-equipped, armed to the teeth, and full of energy. Each of them was an expert who could fight against 100 people. Are you going to scram or not? On a sand dune, an old man from the God-Slaying Alliance said coldly. It was the 9th God Eye. He had already stepped into the martial god realm and was awe-inspiring. Although I admit that you are very powerful, you want us to scram? Dream on. The experts from the Cannon God Alliance looked at each other and gritted their teeth. Although they had always been afraid of being devoured by powerful alliances, they didn't expect this day to come. Destroy them. The members of the God-Slaying Alliance all knew their leader's character. He didn't want to waste time. Therefore, once someone refused to comply, he would destroy them without a second word. He wouldn't even bother to devour them. When the word destroy came out, a terrifying aura surged out. A terrifying aura surged into the sky. Cannon God Alliance, Lone Star Alliance, and the other powerful alliances finally realized that each of them had a divine weapon. No, some of the tycoons had 2 or 3 god weapons, boots, armor, and broadswords. They were armed to the teeth. Looking at their leaders, they were all at the peak of the ancestor realm and had powerful armor. Even if all of them worked together, they wouldn't be able to harm a single strand of their hair. Being rich was just that awesome. We were a little impulsive just now. Can you let us leave? With such a huge gap, the Cannon God Alliance had no choice but to surrender. If they continued to fight, it would be a waste of effort. It's too late, because you have wasted our time. You should know that our leader is worth tens of thousands of golden fleeceflower flowers. You can't afford it, Tianao said coldly. In the past, he wouldn't have been a match for them. But now, he was an expert ranked 300th on the God ranking. Without a doubt, the opening of the God Store had caused a huge shuffle in the God ranking. Some weak ones soared to the sky, while some strong ones fell from heaven to hell and were surpassed by others. This was the specialty of the God Store. Otherwise, there wouldn't be 500,000 or even 1,000,000 experts trying to enter. Hearing the Godslayer Alliance's order to kill, the Cannon God Alliance's members turned ashen. They had never expected that they wouldn't be given any face even though they had begged for mercy. Wait! However, at this moment, a faint voice suddenly drifted out from the Godslayer Alliance's crowd. Although the voice was soft, it carried an unparalleled majesty that silenced the entire Godslayer Alliance. No one dared to say a word. From this perspective, it also showed that the Godslayer Alliance's discipline was strict. Then, the crowd parted. A young man in an ordinary blue robe walked out slowly. He smiled at the Cannon God Alliance's leader. "It's you." The Cannon God Alliance's leader was stunned. He immediately recognized the blue-robed young man because he had fought with that young man in the salt pan. "I didn't expect it to be you. Are you interested in joining the Godslayer Alliance?" The person who had come was Lin Ling. He had also seen the Cannon God Alliance's leader, so he wasted some time to talk to him. The latter's talent was extremely good. He could turn his hands into cannons. Obviously, he was also a fierce general. The Godslayer Alliance lacked such experts. "Yes, of course, but they don't want us anymore. Sai, I regret it." The Cannon God Alliance's leader sighed softly. Then his eyes suddenly lit up. He said anxiously, "Why don't you plead for mercy for me? Help me put in a few good words in front of these leaders." Obviously, although the Cannon God Alliance was arrogant, it depended on who they were facing. In front of a colossus like the Godslayer Alliance, their arrogance didn't exist. But now, they didn't want them anymore. "Okay, I agree. You guys can join the Godslayer Alliance." Chapter 3900. Frantically gathering. "You agreed? We're joining?" The leader of the Cannon Gods Alliance was dumbfounded. If it weren't for the fact that there were too many people in front of him, he would have cursed the blue-robed youth. "Do you think the Godslayer Alliance is yours? You're just a worker. Do you think it's enough just because you agreed? Don't get us killed." After all, he also saw that those powerful leaders didn't say anything. This blue-robed youth didn't even have a godly armor. Why did he have to speak? "Why? You don't believe me?" Lin Ling saw the leader's expression and smiled faintly. "Well, I'm grateful that you stood up for us. However, you'd better find someone who can speak." The leader of the Cannon Gods Alliance immediately said with a smile. However, he almost shouted, "I don't believe you." However, Lin Ling was here to help. Therefore, he was still very polite on the surface. "Someone who can speak? I am. In the Godslayer Alliance, no one will dare to say no to me." Lin Ling smiled and said again. His words shocked the leader. "Don't be too arrogant. Don't offend those leaders. I don't care if they get you killed, but don't get us killed." It was no wonder that he looked down on Lin Ling. Lin Ling wasn't even a martial god. In addition, he didn't have any treasures on him. Therefore, he naturally believed that those leaders with high cultivation levels and treasures would be the ones to speak. In the Godslayer Alliance, no one will dare